right.
live.
I think we're live.
And we're on Zoom.
Yes, we're on Zoom. So
Okay, great.
if
Hello,
people like
Gosha.
Gosha, can people say hello in the chat so we know you're there?
Hello, and
Great
where
to be
you're
back,
from.
Sally.
It was really fun to see where everyone was from last time. So if you can say where you're from, that'd be awesome. Hey, Win, nice to see you again.
Win.
Sally, hello. Okay,
London, Janet should show up there.
Okay.
Kate, Portland, Tom.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Anita. Great. All right, it's working. Ottawa, Simon from Belfast, London. So nice to see everyone again. So were you guys on the last one too? Or is this your first one? Because you won't understand anything unless you were on the first one.
Ha ha. He's lying. Sorry, I'm fixing something
I'm
on my
such
Facebook.
a jokester. Okay. Yes, my second. Last one was awesome. Missed the first one. Okay, that's fine. You'll get the hang of this very quickly. Hello from Norway, Camilla. Nice to see you. Karen, Vancouver. Oh, Phil Hathaway. Nice to see you. Miss you from London. Kate, second. Love the first one. Okay. So let's do a little short introduction about what this one is going to be about. It's going to be about the same theme, but we have different guests, and we're really excited. Like we was last time for the guests, we're going to bring up two of our co-hosts in a second. So last time, Dejan and Patrick were on as guests. This time, we thought it would be good to have them join us as co-host and ask questions of the other guests and bring their input throughout the whole thing, or as long as they can stay on.
Because we actually have 4, possibly 5 guests joining us today. And a couple of them are last minute surprises, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who really came this second time to see Teo, I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
He is just napping right now. So it was really good timing.
He'll come on the second half of this.
As you know, last time he was running the beginning of the show,
right.
But he'll be on the second half for sure. So don't worry, you'll get your dose of Teo. So should we just say briefly about the guests? We'll say more of a proper introduction when they come on. But we're really excited. So our first guest is Kaja Flatøy. Am I saying that?
Flatøy?
Flatøy. I'm working on my Norwegian.
It's the hardest
here
one.
in Chicago. It doesn't help. So Kaja is a nurse from Norway, but she's a traveling nurse. So she goes to parts of the world that are in dire need of additional medical help. So she was in Samoa at the end of last year with the measles outbreak. Yep. And then most recently was just in Italy helping with the COVID-19 outbreak there. So she will be amazing to hear from. Like I said, we won't say any more until we proper introduce her when she comes on. And then we will be joined by Michael Neill. Many of you may know of him. He's an author who's written tons of books. He's a coach. He's worked with all different kinds of people, but Michael is just someone who I love his energy. He's full of energy and he's a beautiful storyteller. So he's going to share some of his own insights on living in times of the unknown.
Yes. Then we got another Michael.
Is he next? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then we got Michael Nimmo. He knows Anna from the Inside Alliance, who was on the last one. He was part of her program in the prisons, and then came out and is now teaching with Anna. And he's just an amazing, insightful, profound human being.
Yes.
We love talking with him. We love being with him. We love hearing what he has to say and what he has experienced throughout his life.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to have
an
him
awesome
come
human
on.
being. Awesome.
And then the last one is kind of a surprise.
Yeah, we weren't sure, and we're still not 100% sure because it's you'll understand in a moment. But George Pransky, potentially joined by his wife Linda Pransky, will be sharing with us about his experience of healing from a stroke, which he had last year, and just the incredible, and you'll hear from him, kind of journey of both a physical, mental, spiritual resilience. He's tapped in that kind of recovery experience,
Right.
but it all depends on how he feels when he wakes up today. So
Right.
that's why he's a surprise.
Right.
We'll see.
Okay. Should we talk a little bit first?
Yeah. So do you want me to start?
Yeah, you start. I wanna check the lighting on this while you do that real quick.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. It's so cool to see everyone joining on from all these different places. Tejan from Chicago. Great. Okay. Can you introduce yourself also for those of us who don't know us? Thank you, Sunny. So my name is Mara, and the gentleman who was to my left and is now behind that camera will introduce himself in a moment, is Adik, and we're a husband and wife team that also started a nonprofit together a few years ago called One Solution. And the short introduction is just that we're both, and this is actually how we met, but we're both really passionate about helping look at challenges, problems, difficulties from the perspective of the mind as the solution. And that's because we both had a lot of personal experiences of discovering that and have learned a lot about that, and have found that when working with people, pointing them back to a deeper truth within themselves, that they have what they need, they just might not realize it sometimes. And that ability for humans to look within, to discover tremendous infinite resources inside themselves, is the quickest, deepest, and most lasting way to help make change on any issue. So if you want to deal with violence or inequality or poverty or war or climate change, all of these issues really stem from humans and human behavior and how we interact with each other and how we feel about ourselves. And it's in our humble opinion and our observations from the work that we've done that the most helpful way to help humans change those issues is by going within themselves and seeing something more helpful within themselves in order to change. And then suddenly people begin to feel more resilient, feel more resourceful from within. And so then they start to behave more resourcefully on the outside. We can't do anything different on the outside if we don't feel anything different on the inside. But we've seen, and some of our stories we're going to share today, and the guests that we're going to have today, and certainly the guests we had last time, for those of you who tuned in, you see how people begin to make incredible changes on a micro scale all the way up to a macro scale in their lives when they feel more resourceful from within. So a quick example from last time, if you listened to Crystal, she talked about, dealing with an injustice between the police and her son, and how she could have gotten angry about that, but instead she had a realization of, oh, I don't want this to be my norm. I don't want to sit with this as the way things have to be. I want to change that. And she had that idea, that thought, that inspiration from within herself. And then she took action on it. And you can see how the ripple effect of multiple collective people taking action like that is how we begin to make changes in the world.
Yeah.
So that's probably an over introduction
No,
of
I think
ourselves.
it was good. No,
Just because someone said, can you introduce yourselves too?
I think that's part of the whole thing.
Hi, Yale from Jerusalem.
Hey, Elle from
nice
Jerusalem.
to see you again.
I can give a couple of examples from my own life about that is, has to do with this theme. Like Mara and I were reflecting about what does it mean to be in the unknown, and how do we actually do something really well, or how do we get the best out of ourselves when we're in the completely unknown. And when I look back in my life at that question, it was like every time I was just with what was happening, it all went really, really well, and I was fine. And every time I was not with what was happening and I was somewhere else, I don't know where I was paying attention, to something else in my mind than what was in front of me, an idea I had, or something I had to do, or something like that. I tend to tense up. I tend to feel a certain level of like, yeah, tension is the best way to see it. And I've had that both in like acute circumstances, but also like ongoing ones. And a big ongoing one for me was the assumption that I wasn't where I was supposed to be. Okay, now that sounds very, very simple. And what does that have to do with anything? Well, that's like a layer that's not like a thing you feel now and again. That's like an assumption that I carried all day, every day. And if I carry that all day, every day, I will experience that, and I will do things all day, every day in order to fix with that feeling that I have, that of something's off. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. My mind will be doing a bunch of stuff all the time, all day, every day, because I have that assumption, that idea, that thought in my mind. And it happens all day, every day. So there's a lot of stuff that I miss. I miss stuff that's right in front of me. I miss having a cup of tea, enjoying that. I miss being with family. I miss being with the work that's in front of me. I miss being with the creativity I can do now. And I live in this fantasy land of the future, or where I could be, or where I could have been in the past, or whatever. So that very simple thing, like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I should be somewhere else. I should be somebody else. That ran my life all day, every day. And when it runs your life all day, every day like that, it really kind of puts a dampen on your energy in general. And when you have low energy, it's hard to see solutions to the very thing you feel like you want in a way. So it creates this pattern of, it's very hard to do something in the unknown because you're constantly trying. My mind is constantly working to make something known. And what I want to see known is the life that I think I want, that is not the one I'm having right now, or the experience that I think I want, that's not the one I'm having right now. So dealing what actually is necessary in the moment, I'm not able to do that because I'm somewhere else. I like to say, like, I'm somewhere else. You can see this in silly examples. If I'm just in my own mind, and Mara will say something, and then I will just have no idea what she said. 5 seconds later, I was like, what did you say? Because my mind wasn't there. I wasn't able to deal with her question because I wasn't there. Or I've had experience where like my mind falls away and it's just me. And I'm like, I see almost like clearly. I see exactly everything. And I've had a couple of moments. I remember one time, Mara was like, I went to the theater and I watched this movie. I think it was Annihilation. I don't know why this movie did this with me, but when I came out, I was like really, really, really weird. I was like, what is going on here? I feel like I can see everything in real time. Like, and I'm like, Mara, are you seeing this? Have you noticed this? Like,
he came into our apartment and started commenting on the artwork on the walls. So when we first moved to Chicago, we were staying in my cousin's place. It wasn't ours, but we'd been there for many months. But like the art on the walls and things like that wasn't ours. It was my cousin's. But he came in, he's looking at all the art going, have you seen this? Like, yeah, we've lived here for like 5 months. What are you talking about? So I was like, are you on drugs?
Right. It had that feeling like I was just noticing everything. And I realized, did I miss all of this? And it was already here. Like really everything this important, that painting, the details on the wall over there. It was a little bit crazy, like beautiful to be able to experience it. But then like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff I'm not seeing because I am somewhere else in my mind. And that's true with anything that, like I say, I do all the time. And it affects when something like unknown happens, because then my mind will go like, try to figure out, use that same pattern of going somewhere in my mind when it's not that process that actually solves really powerful questions. Like if you want to answer a really complicated, profound question, or you want to deal with a extreme challenge, your thoughts and your mind, it's just like most horrible person to do the job. And that's why people in crisis and extreme situation, like when that happens, it's like that process disappears and people just do, it just comes out of you. It's like a different part of it. It just comes, it just happens. You're in the moment in a way. So that will be an example of like very human example that we all do. We all kind of get away from the present moment and we all kind of let our mind wander. And some of us do it a lot. Some of us do it less, and it might be periods of your life. But that process really matters when trying to understand, like, when do we really do well when facing extreme things? Like, what is that? What's happening? What do we do when that happens? How are people able to do these amazing things when they shouldn't? And it's because they're there. They're not somewhere else. They're in real time, and in real time, anything's possible. So that was, example of like, and something that we all can kind of relate to. And I have other examples of more like acute experiences where that had happened, that forced me into that feeling. But I just wanted to like start with introducing, when you hear from people, it's like, you'll hear how were you able to deal with it? How were you able to deal with it? Then you'll hear some version of, they were just there. They were just there and they dealt with it. And that's why they were able to do stuff that other people go, I don't understand how that person did that. It's because you can't think your way there. It's something that just happens.
It appears in the moment.
It appears in the moment.
Yeah, I was reflecting on, for me, the strongest, most,
a little bit more in front of me.
Most recent, me and this microphone have a love-hate relationship, as you know from the last one. We decided to give me the handheld this time, so I can really get it in there. Yeah, so tell me if you can't hear me, folks. Yeah, the strongest example of this for me that's very, very fresh is, as those of you who attended the last one, we experienced a horrible tragedy in the end of October where my brother lost his wife and 2 kids in a car crash. And the only reason I bring that up is because, can I think of any other example besides that? Because I don't necessarily want to just kind of continue to exploit that story or something weird like that. But it's very real for me right now. And so I kind of can't really think of any other. I'm sure I could, but this is definitely the most profound, and it's shown me so many things that I had not seen ever before in my life. But the night that it happened, I, of course, will never forget the phone call that I got from my sister and the words that she kept saying over and over again after she explained to me what had happened. And I was sitting on the couch over there nursing Teo, who was just shy of 1 month old. And, after just saying no, 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 over and over and over again, the thing that my sister kept saying to me is, and in like this saddest, most deflated, lowest voice you can imagine, is she kept saying, I don't know how we do this. How do we do this? I don't know how we do this. It was like she couldn't stop saying those words. And I remember saying, nobody knows how to do this, Callie. Like, no one knows how to do this. But we're just doing it right now. Like, this is us doing it. And this is the only way we're going to do it, is this right now. So just keep talking to me. And it was amazing how huge and overwhelming that feeling was, of like, oh, we just got fucking catapulted into an experience we never in a million years would have thought we'd have to be in, and have no frame of reference for how. Zero. And yet it was like in that moment, I knew it was like, okay, just stay on the phone with me right now. And then, eventually we had to get off the phone. And after I hung up the phone with her, I went and did dishes because it's like, I have to do something. I can't just sit on the couch and stare at the wall and think about what's happening right now. And so for me, it was like moving my body, doing something that felt normal. Like I needed to do something that felt normal. And it was bizarre how normal I felt while doing the dishes. It was like I could kind of just be like, okay, now I'm doing dishes. And I could kind of like, yeah, like I had to. And then, I remember saying to Adek, like, I need to call someone. I need help. I need help from someone. And I had to like sit and figure out. And it took me a while to figure out like who that person was. It's like, I need someone to grab my ankles and like pull my feet to the ground right now. And I figured out who that person was. It happened to be Linda Bransky. And I called her and I talked to her, and she did exactly what I needed her to do, which is she just got really firm with me and really simple. And she said, you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to feed and love your baby. You need to eat, and I was like, yes, this is why I called you. I need someone to tell me very simple things I can focus on. And so then that was what I did. And Adek made sure I ate something and slept. And even though all of those things seemed impossible, but as the days went on and we flew to California the next day to be with my family, I really felt like there's this amazing part of your mind that's been there your whole life. It's not the part of you that thinks about what's happening. It's just the part of you that does. It's just the part of you that is life, and it responds to life. It's like life meets life. It's the life in you meets the life in life. And so life just kind of shows up and puts one foot in front of the other and shows you what to do. And that was what I saw over and over again. Like my whole family, when I got to California, there was this feeling of like, all of us felt like, how the hell are we going to do this? And yet every day we just did, whether that was being together and crying, that was what we did. And then 5 minutes later, finding a comedy to watch on TV. I mean, we would sit
or just look at Teo
or hang out with Teo. Thank God for Teo. And just watch him and smile. Because he was so beautifully unaware and untouched by anything that was happening. And to my amazement, like I remember we all thought we would never be able to drive that road again where it happened. And within days, we were all driving on that road where it happened. And literally a couple days before that, we thought that would have been impossible. Right. And so it was like every day just showed you what you needed to be shown in order to keep living. Now that's an extreme. Right. And unfortunately, like I never wanted to have a personal example of an extreme, but at least for us anyway, and it's all relative. I know there are other people in other parts of the world living with even more extremes or extremes like that over and over and over again. So, but I think what it helped me feel in a more tangible way than I'd ever felt before was that it's not the part of you that can worry about things that's going to be the part of you that does it. That's almost separate. It's like there's the part of your mind that worries about shit, and that's almost like an extracurricular activity that you can,
there's no room for that.
You have in your head. But yeah, then when life happens, it's like that part just nags at you. It doesn't ever solve anything. It's not really where the resourcefulness and the responsiveness of life comes from. It comes from a different place, and it comes from a less personal place. It's just the in life, responding to life in the moment. But everyone has that. I mean, it's what we came in with. I mean, Teo is pretty much purely that right now. He doesn't have the part of his brain, the extracurricular worry part,
Right.
or the self-judgy part, or the does my belly look fat in these PJs part.
Definitely don't have that
It
one.
definitely doesn't have that one.
But he has the full range of
Human
in
emotions.
the moment emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like he's happy all the time. He's happy and then he's fussy and then he's really upset and then he's fine again 2 seconds later. And then he's impatient for his next bite of food. So he whines in between every bite because he wants the next one already.
It's kind of how the last months have been for us too, really, like just that flow of things happening for us. And you just have to do it in the moment.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about it is just also that in a good way, I have much less respect for my mind. And it was kind of freaking me out for a little while because after all of this happened, I just felt very directionless. Like I felt like my mind had been imploded. And so what normally looked like an avenue that I walked along every day, like this is Mara, this is what I do at One Solution, this is my husband, this is my life. It had like a tree-lined street that I could kind of go down in my mind that was very recognizable and very familiar. And I felt like it got bombed. Like I felt like there was like no edges to anything. And I had no idea like what was real anymore, what was true to me anymore, what I wanted to do. I didn't feel like I could share anything with anyone really because I didn't feel like I knew anything. But I got okay with that eventually over time. And it was, people asking me to start doing things again after several months. Hey, would you mind working with this? And I kind of felt like I have no idea how to work with anyone anymore, but sure, I'll try. And in a way, some of the lines have come back for sure. I think they do. I think eventually you sort of like find footing again. You find a road, you find a path again, but the scenery sure as shit doesn't look the same.
Right.
And the only way I can describe it, because it's still not very clear to me, is just how much of, and this might sound totally contradictory to how I just introduced us, but like, it doesn't feel as much about the mind in the way I thought of it before. It feels so much bigger than that. It feels in the body, in the soul, in the consciousness that is totally bigger than inside any one mind or one body or one soul. It just feels like it got blown open and expanded. And so I feel, again, I can't describe it, but I feel like my understanding of life has shifted to something much bigger, which is beautiful, actually. It's much harder to articulate because it's certainly not yet for me anyway, doesn't lend itself to language very well. But it does feeling. And I think you can probably feel what I'm trying to point to.
Right.
And that's why I've just gotten so much more interested in nature and consciousness outside of this life and the way we think of it. Again, I don't even really have words for it. The body, how we can talk to the body, and the consciousness of every cell in our body. Like, all I can say is I'm exploring more beyond what I thought was a very limitless exploration I was interested in before. But after the bombing of my reality, I feel like it just got bigger, and that's really all I can say about that, because I don't know what else to say about it. But thank you, Karen, for saying that was beautiful and articulated wonderfully. I know Karen's always nice. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, try to keep the mic in your mouth. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, why is this so hard for me?
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Mic near my mouth. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
I also wanted to say I can't get on the Facebook thing, so I don't know if there's comments coming there. Can we get it on your phone?
Yeah, we can get it on.
Okay. I think it's because I don't have the Facebook app on my phone.
Yeah, it's just people watching it.
Okay.
Doesn't say much.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But if people want to say something, please comment. If any of what we're saying makes sense, or if it's doesn't, please let us know. But yeah, I feel like
yeah, happy to take questions or expand on anything if people have them.
Our next guest, because it feels like before we were more certain about certain things, and that had a certain level of clarity in words. But now we have way less clarity in that direction, but more internal feeling about it.
That's well put.
So we can't, whereas before, we had more of like, this is how it is type of feeling. And it has allowed us to watch a lot of things happen when any humans say, this is how it is, with a very strong feeling. We feel like, how can you possibly say with those words? Because it's like, it has this infinite feeling of everything. And I feel like our feelings are really strong and people can connect to that. But if you really like words, we're not as clear as we used to be, in a really good way, in my opinion, in a really beautiful way. We're not using the specific language that we used before because we are more open. And we don't want to close it either, in the way we wanted to, like trying to figure out a thing or a way or a words or a thing, like this is what we're about, like how people do it, anything you're trying to do that's true. And it just feels like it's wide open in a great way. But if you look in that direction, like a lot of cool stuff still happens. We connect with so many people.
And I feel like I had a measured openness to things before. I wouldn't have said that before, but I think I had a certain I believe in connecting to the body and feeling what's going on in my body. And now I know, no, you fucking didn't. Like you didn't.
You can see that, yeah.
No, I mean, I liked the idea of it.
Right.
But now I feel like, because when your reality gets bombed, you just kind of like you're so open that suddenly you look at those things again and you're like, oh no, I could explore that in a whole different way. And that seems really cool. And like, I need my body right now. I need to feel connected to my body. And so things like breathing differently and talking to the cells in your body suddenly just make sense to you in a different way. And you start doing them and you start feeling them. And you're like, oh no, I never.
That's not me. I don't do that.
I never felt that before. I never had any. I mean, I thought I did, but like I even remember I know I've shared this before, but we had a miscarriage before we had Teo. And for like a year after that miscarriage, we couldn't get pregnant again. And I really knew sort of intuitively that there was no getting my head together about it. There was no letting go of the sadness. There was no mental shift that was going to do it for me. Like I kind of, I knew I could just let go, but I also knew I could just be sad as long as I needed to be sad, and it was going to move and it was going to move. And like all of that was kind of in a realm that I was comfortable with and had traveled many times before, which is like, I can have a really good mental space about this. But ultimately I kept feeling like there's more healing that needs to happen in my body. And so I ended up reaching out to this intuitive healer woman that lives in Australia. And she started doing this incredible kind of just over the phone, almost like whether you want to call it psychic telepathic body work with me, which included, breathing and laying there and having her kind of talk to my body and me talk to my body. There was tears. It was amazing. And then after that, I remember when we were in Norway over Christmas, which was right before we got pregnant with Teo, I went for a walk, which Norway at Christmas time, for those of you who don't know, it's dark. It's dark all the time in December in Norway. So I've been walking in the dark in northern Norway
With like ice on the ground.
Yeah, and it wasn't snowy. It was really icy. So I had like ice picks on my shoes just to go for a walk. It's very normal for you Norwegians. It was a very surreal experience for me. It was like, Merry Christmas. So I'm walking with these ice picks through kind of this wooded path near his parents' house. And I suddenly had this feeling of like, oh, I'm going to ask the trees to help me to heal my body and to trust nature, because that was intuitively what I felt was going on for me in that year after the miscarriage. And I remember stopping and putting my hands on these trees and talking to them. And it was so beautiful. And it felt like this, it felt healing. It felt like this release. And I had a moment where the part of your thought system I talked about earlier, the extracurricular one, was like looking at me and judging the crap out of me. I was like, I am literally a tree hugger right now. I was like, I'm basically hugging a tree and asking it to heal me. Like, oh, wow, I've gone there. I've totally gone there.
There's no turning back now.
Which sounds so crazy to me that I even had that thought, because it's like, yes, exactly. You can feel trees and talk to them and they can heal you. That feels not weird to me at all now. And it feels like something we probably need a lot more of in this world. And I will encourage, or I should probably say just allow Teo to be that way with nature, because I think a lot of kids naturally are that way with nature. And then we teach them to think it's ridiculous, not necessarily on purpose, just sort of subliminally, but yeah, there was like parts of me that felt like I was allowing myself to be more expanded, more open. And then the cool part of that story, and I don't know if it's coincidental or not, I don't really think it is, but then we got pregnant right after that with Teo. So I think of those trees, and I went and thanked them the next time we were in Norway.
You did?
I went around and thanked
I gotta know
each of them.
What kind of trees these are.
I can show you. You've walked by them a million times. You know those trees.
Man.
So the trees of Norway, that's the memo here.
Yeah, everyone got to go to Norway.
Once this virus is over, go to Norway.
By boat.
Show you which trees.
You got to walk there.
With your mask on.
6 feet apart.
So
yeah,
I just was sharing that I felt like I was kind of beginning to be more curious and open and allowing myself not to know and be like a little bit crazy, not crazy, but seemed crazy. But then this last few months, it's just been so much more, not just okay to go in that direction, but like unavoidable. It seems so obvious. It seems like the only direction to go in, because my mind doesn't have any frame of reference with which to deal with this kind of thing. And as someone said, also becoming a parent is a huge change to one's soul. So we got doubled up with experiences.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time.
Which is true. I've never had so much joy alongside so much sadness, because it has been both. There's been so much beauty and joy for us.
And I would say we thought we were very, very open, and we thought we also worked in a field and a feeling and in a way that was very open, but like it was totally invisible how we were open within a certain frame. We were like, we had certain limits to it that was within a certain idea or philosophy that fit inside a certain pattern, and we would go, oh, I'm so very open, but this is the way things are. This is the box of how things are, and this is the way it works. So that box, we never questioned the thing itself and just said, let's be open inside this because these are the things that are true. And now it's like that box isn't there, and it's like, oh, okay, now we know way less because we're not living in a box, but we get access to everything that's outside, that's full of feeling and experiences and stuff like that. So you're free, but you're also a little bit more confused in a beautiful, not in a like, oh, what am I doing, but just it's like you know but you don't know type of feeling.
And it was confusing. Not, yeah, I definitely had moments of real discomfort with it in the beginning,
Yeah.
um, because I didn't know how I was gonna do anything.
No,
And yet
that's
I
true.
was doing things every day. But my normal definition of doing things didn't make sense anymore. So I was like, how does this work? Like, am I gonna be able to make a living? Or like I just felt so like what I used to think didn't make sense anymore. So I couldn't. But to come back to the original point, that same conversation that I had with my sister that night of like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. It's like, no, but you do. You don't know that you do because it's a part of you you've never had to call upon before, but in you, you will know what to do because you are life. It will show up. And that's kind of just proof for all of us living right now. You are proof of that. You listening to this, you watching this, you are proof of that. We are proof of that. Um, so it's, and I know, like I said, the lines start to come back, and I'm okay with that too. Like you can't live in a constant state of shock. Live, you can't live with no form all the time, that you just sort of hang out in the unknown. But it is, I'm grateful to have had my known shifted, expanded, altered. But I also know I'm going to come back to a known. I'm in one now. I'm talking from one now, and that's okay too, because that's part of being human. So I don't want to pretend like uh, I'm not going to talk like I know what I'm talking about again, because I
Right.
am, because it's human. I can't help it. I can't
Right.
help it.
Yeah.
Kind of wish I could, but I can't. That's okay.
Well, let's see what people are saying here.
Okay.
Love the touch of this conversation. And that's all I'm able to articulate right now from the ocean of yum rising response from Seattle. Nice. Kari says, love what you're talking about. Feeling beautiful, Mara. Thanks for sharing. Okay, it doesn't look like any questions, but it seems like people are enjoying it. That's great. Appreciate the
Before we move
sincerity.
on to our first guest, does anyone have a specific question, or are people just happy to keep cruising? You saw this about the mic?
Yeah,
okay.
let me know if it's better now, because we're trying to adjust it.
Oh, this is cool. I didn't see this one that Andrea wrote. It feels to me as if we, 21st century humanity, lacks words matching the feeling you are talking about. The
Yeah,
words, phrases may come. I totally agree with that.
right. Yep. Feli came in, joined late, but what was the box? The limitation.
Who said that?
Well, I can ask. The box is whatever idea you have about life. Like, we're talking big things, not just like the box you have a certain opinions, but like how you think life with a big L is. And I was saying that I thought I was open, and I thought I was completely open to life, but I just had an invisible box. So I would say the box is something that's completely invisible. Like, you have some frames around it that we need as human we need them to make sense of things and to communicate, but we don't need them for any profound feelings or for any knowledge, true knowledge. They're not needed. They're only needed in communicating where we should go. But in terms of human and nature, it's like, we don't need it. And actually, the things that we do and the stories we tell will probably be completely different if we all opened up the limitations of what we think life is about. Yeah.
And it does make you like feel a certain certainty, like you talked about before, but it also makes you, and I don't mean it in a bad way. Like I said, this is unavoidable. So there's nothing, I'm not judging my former self, and I'm not judging you or me now, because I know I'm in another box now, but it does, I think, limit how you are with people and how you share with people. Like that's another one of the things that I saw that really surprised me is like I have an extremely close family. I think I referenced this a little bit on the last one, but not in depth. But so I always thought of us as very close. I always thought of us as very open. Like I joke sometimes maybe too open, like we know
Very,
everybody's
very open.
business. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to you.
Close. Very close.
We'll get into your thoughts on the in-law situation. No,
No, in a good way.
I don't want to imply it's bad. No,
Right.
it's just, yeah, but to you, like very close.
Yeah.
So anyway, what surprised me is when we were all thrust into this unbelievable unknown,
Right.
like layers and layers and layers and layers of shit that you would normally think about that filters your experience. Like you talked about after the movie when you came out and you're like, was that painting always there? Like you don't realize how much thinking you have, your conceptual idea of life and what you think is important, what you think you want to talk to your siblings or your parents
Who
about,
you think
like
you are.
who you think you are, the way you talk to people, the way you show up. You might think you're open, you might think you're close to people, but then what surprised me is that for a family that was so open and close, I felt like all of this layer of just stuff went away.
Right.
And we were in this incredibly honest, pure space of truth with each other. Like there was no persona of anybody. And it made me go, oh, we were living in versions of ourselves, not ourselves.
And we're seeing versions too.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm hanging out with these people in this unbelievably honest space. And it just made me look at my whole life and be like, God damn, I thought I was so open and real. And I'm like barely scratching the surface. Like, it was just shocking.
Yeah.
So, and then I feel like, you know, you start to see all those boxes, like the daughter box, the entrepreneur box, this is how I talk to people about thought and the mind and how experience works box. Like you realize you have all these different boxes. There's countless boxes, but like falling out of them for a bit, I realized I could suddenly see them. I couldn't see them when I was in them. I could see them when I came out of them. And it was like, oh, that just seems like a completely innocent watering down of the truth.
Right.
Like a watering down of real. And so it's been at times a little disorienting, but mostly very freeing and very lovely. And I've even said many times, like, I don't want that to change. Like, I know to some degree we're all going to slip back into our personas and our boxes a bit, and we can't help that. And I don't want to, you know, get depressed about it or have an attitude about it.
Right.
But I just want to be conscious of the beauty of what it was like and what life can be like if we don't slip into those. So I try to like catch myself now. Like if I start to have what feels like a kind of rote conversation.
What does rote mean?
Like routine. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I noticed I keep calling my brother and going, hey, how are you? And I'm like, why am I asking him, how are you?
Right. Yeah,
because that's what humans are taught to say at the beginning of every conversation. And I know he doesn't really want to be asked that.
Right. You know what it's like. Yeah.
It's not real. And it's frankly a question that's like really hard for him to answer right now.
Right.
So why don't I come up with something more authentic and honest to say in that conversation? But that's just one little example. But I feel like also in terms of just working with people now on a professional level, I'm feeling much freer about what we talk about and how that conversation can go anywhere and nothing really looks off limits, I guess, or something like that.
So should we put on
yes,
our next guest just so we can get
just to answer Sunny, my brother is doing amazing, all things considered. And if you didn't see the last one, he was a guest on the last one, and it's on our Facebook page, so you could even hear from him directly if you want. I'd recommend checking that out.
I'm going to add our little panelist, and then I'm going to add Kaja, and then we'll have our first guests. Let's see. So Dejan, Patrick, and Kaja, can you let me know if you are there? All right, we got Kaja in the house.
Nice to see you.
And then we'll see if Dejan and Patrick will join. So
Oh my gosh, she's wearing a Rebel
Oh,
for
they gotta
Peace
see this. She
shirt.
got the Rebel for Peace.
That's awesome.
Oh,
That's so cute.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we gotta put on this.
Oh, right. I forgot we have to put on the headphones.
There we go.
Yeah, the Rebels for Peace joint.
All right.
You got the Rebels for Peace joint.
Oh,
I hear
Dejan's there.
Dejan.
Dejan, can you show put on video? There we go.
You know. You got the Rebels for Peace joint on.
Did you hear that, Kaja?
What?
Oh, he was asking if you had the Rebels for
You got
Peace.
the Rebels on.
Yes, I do. I got all dressed up for this meeting.
I feel less dress appropriate because I don't got my shirt on. I feel,
This is my favorite shirt.
It's an embarrassing day when the CEO gets outdressed.
man, it's like, hey, it's crazy.
Oh, am I supposed to still do this? Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot.
Okay, so let's introduce Kaja. So I've known Kaja and you've known Kaja for a long time now. We're good friends. We've worked together. We've had workshops together. She's a great person, a human, just to talk with people. She is really, really powerful when she helps anyone who is struggling or is stuck on an individual level. Professionally, she's amazing because she's had all these years in the medical field, which is partly why we also want her to share about. So she was going to come to Chicago last fall to be with us when we're working with people in Chicago. I was going to meet Dejan in the fall, but then she got called out to deal with the measles outbreak in Samoa, right, Kaja?
Yeah, Samoa.
Yes. So she got sent there to deal with that situation. I was like, oh, okay, we can't do anything with that. Well, let's try to, you can come to Chicago maybe in the spring. And then COVID-19 happened. She's like, well, I can't come because of COVID-19. And I'm going to Italy now to help with the outbreak in Italy. So she's a hard woman to get a hold of and to get to come visit us because she's out there helping so much with people who really, really need it. So thank you so much for coming on this, Kaja.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to talk to you all again. So
Yes, finally.
great opportunity. And finally, I get to wear my T-shirt where somebody understands what it means. So yes, yeah.
Dejan, how is it that someone in Norway wears your T-shirt?
It feel good because that's the original T-shirt too. You know, that's the OG T-shirt. So I feel good right now. Like it's global. You feel me? That's the OG T-shirt.
Cool. I can brag about that when people start making copies here in Trondheim. That I can say I've got the original.
You got
Yes,
the original.
exactly.
That's the OG one.
Thank you.
So I don't know what would be the most logical place or the best place to start.
Well, I was thinking I would love to hear your experiences of resilience, how you helped people, how people helped themselves amidst what can seem very, very overwhelming and
Very
chaotic
dramatic.
and unknown. It's scary. But even before you get into that, maybe you could say just a tiny bit about yourself and your career and how you got into this and you know, what it was like going to Samoa and then Italy. I just personally, selfishly would love to hear that part too.
Share everything.
I'll just pour my heart out.
Okay.
Well, I became a nurse almost 20 years ago, so I'm starting to be all grown up. The last time somebody knocked on the door to say that the party is over, I said it was actually after the Italia mission, and then we had a little party, and they said, okay, the party's over now, it's too late. And I said, someone grown up. But I still don't feel like a grown up. But I guess I have to realize I'm starting to become one now. But I've been a nurse for almost 20 years. And besides that, I took an education to be a kinesiologist. So for 13 years, I think, I've had my own company outside the hospital where I've worked 1 day a week with people. So for the first years, I worked as a kinesiologist, and I worked a lot with the patient's body and the connection with the body, like you spoke about just now, Mara, and had a lot of really good experiences with that. So I'm very impressed by what kinesiology can actually do of good. But after a few years, I started to recognize that the conversation was the place where I was most comfortable. And I found that just talking to people, we made a stronger connection and more progress in whatever the person was struggling with. So I went over to do more and more of conversations. And then I think it's about 6 years ago that I was at this course and I listened to Eirik talk, and I couldn't understand anything that he said. So I was literally sitting like this, and what is that guy talking about? But he comes from the same part of Norway as me. He comes from the north of Norway, and immediately I just trusted him and everything that he said.
And Dejan, Norway has the same north side, south side thing. Big time. It's like, oh, if you're from the north side of Norway, it's like the south side of Chicago. You're like, oh, we got each other.
We got another OG rebel.
Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Oh, we got Patrick here too.
Hey, y'all. How y'all doing?
Hey.
Good. Oh, you got the shirt on too. You and Kaja.
We'll continue, Kaja.
We got two OGs in the house. Yeah.
Kaja's in the middle of her introduction, so we'll go back to that real quick.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I listened to Eirik and I tried to make sense of what he was saying, and I couldn't in my mind, but it made totally sense in my heart, which was, it made me curious and made me, wanting to hear more. So I sent an email to Eirik and said that I'm not really sure what you talked about or what you're saying, but I'm so curious, I want to hear more. So we started having conversations over the summer. And as you were saying earlier, you thought that you were open and that you were not living in a box, that your spirit and mind was free. But I started seeing how limited my mind was. And I didn't have any big problems in my life, but I was genuinely happy. And I thought that I had it like going on, or that I'd figured out how to be happy and all the techniques and everything. So I was comfortable in my own life and in my own skin, but seeing the new things that wasn't really apparent, or it wasn't there for me until I started having these conversations. Seeing all those new things just really blew my mind. So going from being very comfortable in my box, I blew my box, or my box blew for me. And I started seeing so many more things, so many more possibilities, and so many, more ways of doing things that weren't that limited. So in all my line of works, like at the hospital, I've worked at the surgical ward for a few years first, and then in the emergency ward. So, and I teach within different areas. So in my teaching and in my job at the emergency ward and in my coaching, I started having a lot of progress. It was easier for me. I got more things done. I wasn't as tired, and I had a lot of truths about how it was to go to work on Monday, and how I felt about having vacation, and how I felt about coming back to work and everything. So all those truths just disappeared for me, and it opened up. It was like I don't know. It was like, I've never taken ecstasy, but I can imagine that's what it felt like, because it felt like nothing was impossible. Everything was possible and nothing was scary anymore. So it's not like I've been walking around feeling scared, but I've had thoughts of anxiety or thoughts of fear and thoughts of uncomfort that or discomfort that were suddenly bearable. I wasn't struck by my feelings anymore in a way. So that was the biggest change for me. Yeah, so I started, I don't know, being in life without having a pre-assumption of how life was supposed to look like, which was really different for me, and it made all the difference in the world. So after that, I started talking about this to all my clients. I knew very little, so little, but I just talked about the little things that I had seen, and that made a huge difference in all of those conversations. So yeah, it was really life-changing for me to see these new things.
And how is that? Has that changed, or like? Because I know you're. What is acute? Then, like when it's you see a lot of stuff happening in real time in your work, like. Someone calls, it's like, whoa, this situation is happening right now. You know, that is something that you see a lot of the times.
You're responding to emergency.
Yeah, emergency, like a lot of emergency. Like, what do you see in terms of emergencies and how people handle those? You can talk both about what you've been in recently, or if you have stories from before that you've had some kind of experience of that.
Yeah, and it's kind of I don't know, divided in a way, because in the army, people talk about when something happens, you don't rise to the occasion, but you drop to the level of your training. And in technical views, like how to put a needle into one's vein and all the technical stuff that you need to train to be able to do good, it is totally true. But in another way, your creativity and your presence and your I don't know, the things that you talk about that will help in that situation is not like that at all. Because it's not, you're unable to train to do that. You just have to be in the moment. So when for example in Italy, when all hell broke loose, they had to use their training to be able to treat the patients very fast and do the things that they were trained to do, and to divide the places where they had the clean sites and the contagious sites, and they had to rebuild the whole hospital. So they had to do a lot of things that they were trained to do, just in a much bigger scale and in a different way maybe than they had done before, because this is new for everyone. But the other part is how to handle a massive, like a tsunami, how to be able to just be in it. There is no training for that. You cannot prepare yourself to meet something like that. So your story, Mara, really struck me and moved me a lot, because it's exactly how it is. Because I don't know how to do this, and we don't know how to do this because we don't have any experience, and we're not able to train to do that. But just knowing that there is something there that is able to find the way as you go anyway, so you don't have to worry about knowing how to do this, makes all the difference in the world. And I think you explained it perfectly. So when you were talking, like so many times I've noticed that the words that you say, it really is not that important, but the feeling that you had when you said it and the things that you expressed are so to the core of truth. And the best example I can give from the recent assignment was a patient of mine in Bergamo in Italy that had just lost his wife 10 days ago, and he came in as a patient. So his wife just died from COVID, and he himself had COVID, and his son was also hospitalized with COVID. And he was so afraid. It was so sad because of the loss of his wife, and he had all these things going on. And I don't speak Italian. I've learned just the things that I needed to learn to get by, some, but I don't speak Italian at all. But every day I went into his room and I was sitting on his bed, and he talked for 10 minutes straight out in Italian. And I could just sense, I understood a little bit, and he showed me a picture of, he had a little brown thing with pictures in, and he had a picture of the Pope and his wife when she was young, and his wife just recently, and another religious figure, I'm not sure who it was. But this book he brought every day. He took it out and he showed me his wife and talked a lot about his wife, and I could understand that she was a very loving person that made everyone comfortable around her when she was alive. And when he cried, I could just stroke his back, and when he was laughing, I could just smile and laugh with him. And he told me all these stories that I have no idea what the words were, but I could just feel the feeling of the stories. So every day I sat there for 10 minutes and he told me stories in Italian, and he was very articulate like Italians are, and very expressive with his body. And then after 10 minutes, it was like, okay, I'm done now. So he just looked at me and he said, "Grazie per la visita," which means thank you for the visit. So that in that way, I knew that, okay, now he's done talking, and he doesn't care if I understand the language or not. I was just there with my presence, and he was there with his presence, and that was everything that was needed. So he said that he had a big house, and he didn't know how to fill this house. That's what I think he said anyway. He didn't know how to fill this house alone because he had no way of, he had no experience of living in this house alone without his wife, because he was admitted right after she died. But what I could sense from what he said was that because he has these pictures of her, and because he still has her with him in a way, and he has his beliefs, then he doesn't have to know. He just has to go on. He just has to take the next step. So we did this for a lot of days in a row. And the last day, I was with another patient, and I just heard him shouting in the hallway, and he said, "Bella Kaja, Bella Kaja." And then I came out, and he was there in his red pajamas. He was so cute, and his skin shoes and a robe, and he had a small bag and his thing with the pictures in it. And he was just standing there, and he said, "I'm going to my home now," and he blew me some kisses along the hallway. And the feeling that I got was that I felt sorry for him and his story, and I felt like it was really, really sad, but I knew that he was okay, and he knew that he was okay. So even though it was a big tragedy, his feet were blown away in a way. He was like he lost everything that he had, and he had to start living all over again in one way. But he knew that what he needed was just to keep on walking in a way, to just take the next step. So he just strolled down the corridor, and it was a beautiful man.
I love picturing him in his red PJs.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really amazing story, especially since you didn't understand.
Yeah, like I hadn't
Italian.
even thought about. Of course, you don't happen to speak Italian, or I don't know what they speak in Samoa, but how you just made what I was trying to say earlier make so much more sense. It's like, it's not the language. It's never been the language. And the fact that you had that kind of an experience in Italy is such beautiful evidence of that. So cool, so touching.
That was probably the thing that I learned most in Italy, because in Samoa they have a language of their own, but most of them speak English, at least the people that we work with. So we were able to communicate more, and we were able to discuss the patients and the treatment, and to nurse like we do at home more easily. But when we came to Italy, we had no common language, and very few Italians speak English very well. So every communication had to come in another form. So being there and doing my job as a nurse without words was really a beautiful experience, because I had to search within myself to find the other creative ways to communicate. So by body language, or just presence, or singing. We also had some I don't usually sing with patients back in Norway. Usually here I talk, but there I caught myself singing with the patients so many times.
Amazing.
So yeah, I had this other man who was I thought that his wife was dead, because he was lying there telling that he missed his wife, and he was thinking about her. And one day I came in, he was looking at his phone, and there was this cellist called Hauser, I think, that was a really good cellist, and he put on Hallelujah. So, and I know the song because a Norwegian artist plays it, and I really love him. So I knew the words, and when he put on Hallelujah, he sang in Italian and I sang in English. We had the same tone. So we sang together. And, when you work in this COVID places, it's like there's nothing that shows really. You have like a hat on, and you have the, what do you call it? The mask.
Yeah,
the mask and the glasses, and I was really covered, all of me, but you could see my eyes. So I just looked him into the eyes, and he put on this music, and I was singing and he was singing, and it was such a beautiful moment. And I thought that who needs words? There's no need really.
It's funny that you say that, because that's your language with Teo.
Yes.
You just sing to him.
I sing with him
pretty much nonstop.
I think, if I'm being modest, I probably made 20 hit songs by now, Billboard level. But yeah.
Now I'm really curious. Could you show us?
I have recordings.
Something tells me that
it's in the moment, though.
Kaja's Hallelujah would probably beat out.
It's usually with things that just happens.
I'm going to feed you some peas now, or whatever.
No, but
have you seen the Friends show where they sing, I like big butts and I cannot lie?
Exactly.
I haven't seen that one, but I'll have to look it up.
No, I was gonna I can so relate to what that story you said, and it's like language sometimes makes it more complicated, because if we speak the same language, we think we're talking about the same thing because we agree on the words. So you think, if I say this word, understands what it means, but I realized like you don't not really. And if you're forced to not do that, then suddenly you have to like not use words, and then actually you can get to the core of the matter really, really quickly. And I know exactly what you're talking about in the military with the training and the standard operating procedures. So if there's then that training that works beautifully for certain things, but there's been moments where something happened and it wasn't a trained situation, and you have people who freak out because they have relied on training. They thought, oh, if I just train enough, then I know what to do. But in facing what you can't train, then you actually have to let go of your training. Like you have to do the opposite of what you've been trained to do. And that has some really dramatic consequences in emergent situations like yours, or in the military, or when you're up against things where training isn't gonna help. It's an in the moment thing. And I can so relate to that, because I've felt that experience. I felt that feeling of like, oh, okay, this is not in the book, and nobody I ask have written a book about it. You know, like you can't, nowhere outside is the answer to this. Or if somebody says something outside, it does nothing for me. So that you have to like let go of what you think and find what's in the moment. I can so relate to, and I think that's so true. People are loving your story too, Kaja, by the way.
Oh, that's nice. I think that's what our team, because who I traveled to Samoa with and also to Italy, it's called the Norwegian Emergency Medical Team, and it was the UN that organized these teams all over the world, because during the tsunami and the earthquake in Nepal and other crises, there have been a lot of volunteers rushing to the area and wanting to do good, but it's been very little organized, and it didn't always play out all that well. So because of that, they wanted to create these teams that worked similarly, so that they could cooperate better from country to country, or in between teams. And our Norwegian team was certified maybe 1 year ago or something. So we've been training for a couple of years. And I'm sorry, I have this dog here. My ex-wife's dog. I think he hears someone. Knut! I'll just let him out. Just a minute.
No worries. While she's doing that, if anyone has a question for Kaja, please, or want to share anything, we really appreciate it. Of course, Dejan and Patrick, feel free to ask her a question too, if you have any.
Sorry about that. That's the cutest.
Were you going to finish? You can finish if you want, Kaja.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that is like the idea behind this team, that we train for something, but both of the assignments that I've been out on now have been totally different from what we've been trained to do. So we're trained to go out and put up a tent and work within this tent. But both the assignments we've been on, we had to go into some other country's hospital and work there side by side with the locals. So it's nothing that we've been trained to do, but that is kind of the essence of this team, that we can prepare as much as we can, but when we get there, we aren't prepared, because it might be totally different. So the ability to work in the unknown and to be kind of comfortable or useful in the unknown is kind of the essence of this team. So yeah.
That's cool.
What are some ways that a person could get to that level of comfortability with themselves?
Some ways that you could get to the comfortability with themselves?
Or better yet, some ways that you have got to that comfortability. That might be easier.
To be comfortable in my own
self, or in those situations.
Yeah. Oh, good question. I think being comfortable with the uncomfortable has been like the essence of this, because it's not very comfortable to be in a position where somebody talks a different language and you don't understand what they're saying, and you have to do a job, but you can't figure out what they're saying. So I just have to wait it out until I can Google it, or they can translate, or I can understand better. So, but being able to be in the uncomfortable feeling and knowing that this won't last forever, I think that is what I've learned again and again and again, that being uncomfortable isn't dangerous in any way. It's a natural feeling. It's a natural experience that is uncomfortable for everyone, but it's not something that I have to fix or run away from or even do something with. So just, I usually say sitting nicely in the boat, sitting calmly in the boat until time has passed and it feels better or I see solutions.
Yes.
That's great.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. I also feel like for me it's like I'm usually uncomfortable whenever I'm dealing with something new or that I haven't already experienced. That's usually when I have all the unknown thoughts and any just anxiety at all. I feel like that's for a lot of people as well, that whenever you trying something new or something that you haven't had any type of experience with, that it'll always be a fear of the unknown. But also like me just noticing that when we have a mission or a reason why we're doing that or putting ourselves in that position, it always makes it easier.
Yeah.
I got a question.
I was just thinking that if you have like a vision of how it's supposed to look or how you're supposed to look when you do this, then you already limited it. So just to be open that I might not look as good doing this, or I might not nail it the first time, but that's okay, because I learn along the way and I try, and usually you come out on the safe side or the good side, but even though I won't, that's okay too.
Someone asked a question, and I think it's good.
Let's ask that, and then Dejan can ask his, and then.
Oh yeah, sorry. So Pam said, given how many healthcare workers became infected with COVID, especially in Italy, how did you handle the reality of that risk?
Yeah, well, that's also a good question, because I was afraid when I went. I heard about the hundreds of doctors that were dead because of COVID. And I knew that the apartment where I was, all the patients there had COVID. So we were, it was all over in a way. And given the amount of patients coming at the same time and all of the virus that was all around, there were no safe places. So just having a cup of coffee was a big risk, but still I wanted to have that coffee because Italian coffee is great. And also I wanted to socialize with my colleagues in Italy. So being precautious, doing the washing the hands and being careful in every way that I could, that made me a little bit more secure, but still in some situations I could put in a needle and somebody opened the lid to the CPAP and I just got a shower of COVID in my face. So I was a bit scared at sometimes, of course, but still I took all the precautions that I could, and that was kind of part of the deal, that there is a risk about going to Samoa. There was no risk because we had the vaccinations or the vaccines before. So, but this was a risk, but that was kind of calculated when we went, that somebody in this team is likely to be infected during those weeks there. But luckily, nobody was infected when we came home. So,
Wow.
and that is kind of incredible.
That is incredible.
So, wow.
One part precautions and one part dumb luck, I think.
Wow.
Awesome. Let's do a question from you, Dejan. Then we have one more from Karen Miller. Dejan, did you want to ask a question? Oh.
I was going to say he looked frozen.
I feel like I know Dejan.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
You basically answered my question. I was just gonna ask because I live in a household that don't take the virus really serious, and it's like it's a lot of people that be in and out the house that like shouldn't be. And I was just gonna ask, how do you stay sane with all the risk of you catching the virus? That's what I was gonna ask, but you basically answered it. But if you can add on, you can.
Mm-hmm. I had this conversation with my daughter recently as well. So in a perfect world, everybody take the precautions and everybody is careful and doing what they're supposed to do. But in the real world, we know that that's not always how it is. So I think finding the balance between being careful yourself, washing your hands thoroughly, sneeze into your elbow, and doing your precautions, then you are pretty safe. And as to staying sane in all of this as well, I think it's like using your reason in a way that, okay, if there are the rules in Norway anyway say that 5 people together, and I think it's less scary to have 6 people together if they're very thorough with their hygiene and everything than having 3 people together that hug all the time. So it's like using your reason to and get to know what a virus is, how it contagious from one person to another. So knowledge about this virus keeps us safer because we know how to handle it. So I think it's very important that people don't get scared of being close on a long term, because that might be more damaging for our emotional health than the virus itself. So I think being precautious in this relatively short amount of time to keep it calm or keep it as steady as we can, and then as we start to open up the societies again, just take the precautions and be careful without stopping to be close in a way. So I'm one of those huggers that can't wait to get to hug again. So I'm really afraid that this COVID situation is going to turn into a fright in the world where we stop hugging each other or we stop being close on the long term when the precautions are no longer needed. I'm very afraid of that. So I will just for now we have to follow the rules, but ahead in the future I will be one of those huggers again.
Great. We have one last question from Karen. Kaja, are you helping with the mental health crisis for healthcare workers? Could your team also help virtually on self-care or resilience? She's asking.
Well, my team is by now is kind of there are different levels on these teams. So my team is trained to do like the if there's a big earthquake, we take them in, and we don't do surgery for now anyway, maybe later, but we do like the first aid help. So we help people in the initial phase of the wounds, or we go into the hospital and work on their premises to help there as much as we can, even if they need someone to just relieve their work with anything basically. But I know there are other teams that when we were in Samoa, for example, there were over 80, I think it was 85 people who died from the measles in a very small society. There are only 200 people living in Samoa on the whole island or islands, and a lot of babies died. A lot of kids died there. There were mostly, I think it was 79 of them were kids. So there were a lot of people deeply affected by this. Also we that were there, and a lot of families were struck by this tragedy. So there was a team that was going around to see if anybody needed emotional help or financial help or help to get by in a way. So there are other teams that specialize on that. So my team is like a trauma team in a way that can also do other assignments, but the emotional resilience work is different team. So I do my resilience work in my spare time in a way, in my coaching. But also I use everything that I have. So when we're in acute crisis, then I use everything that I've learned in this field as well, of course, during doing my nursing things.
Right. I think of your first story about singing with the Italian gentleman, and I think that's probably the best mental health care you could have given him, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, sometimes the mental health care is just being human. It's not necessarily a separate thing. You know, you can have those teams that are only doing that in order to help, but then everyone's really can bring that. Like, that's what we've come to realize. In order to help a lot of people, we can't only put it in a certain mental health box or a certain therapy box. It has to be a human thing that we all just are able to be that person that sings with our loved ones in a way, and that it's way more human and scalable in a way to be able to do that, in addition to, of course, the teams that are dedicated to it. But I think that's beautiful. I think everything you do is very, very beautiful.
Yeah, Sally says so much admiration for the work Kaja does and her presence.
Yes.
I have one more question I really want to ask, but I don't know if am I messing up the schedule?
Yeah, we're a little bit
okay.
We gotta go time for the next guest. I'm sorry.
Well, Kaja, I'm gonna call you on the side.
Yeah,
girl.
we're gonna talk more about this. But one comment was, my sister, both nurses in Spain, talk about the same human stories with patients and families of patients. Amazing humanity showing among so much suffering. So
And
that's true.
I would just say briefly, like, what I got struck by is how, you know, we think of viruses and death as something so awful and scary. And I'm the last person to minimize the horrible sorrow and sadness that comes from losing loved ones right now, because I get it. I feel it. I'm in it with you. So I'm not saying that losing loved ones isn't hard. It is. But I do feel like the humanity that you shared with all of us today, and you shared with those people there, like, it's sort of, I don't know, this is just in my words, but it makes me also feel like maybe we spend a little too much time and energy trying to live forever, and it keeps us distracted and not connected. And there's something about, you know, staring death in the face that just sort of makes us cut all the crap and just be with each other. And I think to your comment earlier about, like, I can't wait to get back and hug people, and I hope that this virus doesn't make people frightened of connection. I'm also really hoping that this virus doesn't make people more frightened of death, because I think we need to get more okay with it and realize the incredible beauty that often comes with being closer to death, and appreciating that our time in this form anyway is limited. So I think there's potential for us to get something really beautiful about being more with illness and with death, and being okay with that, and seeing the beautiful side of it as well. And I just feel like you brought that alive today in what you shared. So for me, it was deeply, deeply moving and healing. And thank you for being here right now.
Yes.
Sure. I just one little story in the end, because the last shift that I had at the hospital, we had two ladies that I've followed for 2 weeks almost, and they both died on our last shift. And as you say, sometimes death can also be relieving. It's not only about keeping patients alive all the time. So being able to be there, and I played Volare, an Italian song, a beautiful version, on the phone while I just sat there and held her hand, and I could be there while she took her last breath. And it was a beautiful thing to participate in letting go as well. So not only saving lives, but being able to just be present during everything. So that relief was, and that both of them dying on the same shift, on the last shift, was kind of a closure. We knew that was the way it was going, and that can also be a closure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a hug.
Here's a
hug. Did you feel it? It feels so good.
very awkward hug, but it is.
We could hug each other, but no, we'll just do
Everybody
this
hug.
instead.
Everybody hug, yeah.
Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Kaja.
Thank
It
you
was
so
nice to
much.
see you, and
Thank you so
we're
much.
making the trip to Chicago happen someday, somehow.
Yes.
Hope to soon.
Most definitely is.
Yeah.
All right. So we got to do two things now. I'm going to, remove Kaja there. Then we're going to add Michael, and then I'm going to go get,
I was going to say, can I go get Teo? Because I also have to use the bathroom.
okay. Yeah.
Or we can make a short break, whatever.
No, let's put Michael on. And then,
Okay. Bring Michael on. I got to grab the baby. Teo's going to be in
all
the
right.
house.
Thank you
Be
so
right back.
much, Kaja. And then we got the next guest coming up. Let's see if this works. Oh, Michael, you there?
I am indeed. Yeah,
All
I
right.
got promoted to panelist.
You are promoted hereby. So Mara's just getting a Teo, but we'll start. Were you able to listen to any of it? I know you had a live stream.
I was, and I was racking my brain thinking, wait, how do I sound like I lead a meaningful life? but you know, I don't think I'm going to suddenly get more deep in the next 10 minutes. So you're going to have to take what you can get. And now for something completely different.
That's so funny. Yeah, I know. Those are some really cool stories for sure. So I know a lot of people here know you, Michael, but for the people who don't know you, do you want to give a little bit of a short introduction to that and why you're interested in the topic of the unknown?
Yeah, I mean, I only got interested in what makes people tick, like how do we work, because I didn't work. Like, so I grew up a sort of a depressed, suicidal teen and went through about 7 years of that throughout adolescence and you know, a couple of, looking back, close calls, but came out the other side still thinking I was broken, but thinking that I'd learned how to manage my brokenness in a way. And then about you know, worked with people and wrote books that became bestsellers and did radio. Like I was a high functioning depressive in my mind. And then about 12 years ago, I came across what you guys talk about, you know, this understanding of the mind. And it really did change everything for me. And I went from being the most frightened person in any room I was in, and like functionally frightened.
Right.
I got a lot.
People wouldn't
done.
notice.
No, but you know, it was just this you know, doesn't everybody have underlying terror? To a place where genuinely the unknown is my favorite place to be. I seek it out. I've learned to throw myself in way over my head because it's the one place where it's easiest for me to switch off all my thinking about the past and the future and I've found I so love what comes in the moment that I have very little taste for preparedness beyond the basics. I mean, obviously, if there are tech things you need to know how to do, you need to know how to do them. If there are business things you need to know how to do, you need to know how to do them. If there are health things you need to know how to do, you need to know how to do them. But other than that, I would always far rather come in unprepared than prepared, because then I have to rely on this creativity in the moment, this responsiveness in the moment, this intelligence in the moment. Now, I've gotten better. Like I can now sometimes prepare and still come from that place. So it's no longer quite as crazy. There's a lot of extreme athletes go for that same thing by taking on more and more extreme situations. And I don't have to do that as much anymore. I was, funnily enough, interviewing a woman who ran a 3,000 person team of healthcare workers during the MERS crisis in 2015. And we were talking about how in some ways it's easier to find this in the midst of crazy and chaos, but finding calm in the midst of calm can be harder.
Yeah.
But you start to get a feel for it. You start to find your way.
Can you say more about that calm in the calm part? Like when you say you love the unknown, like that space of creation. It seems like you love that. When you don't know, then that's when the good stuff is created. Are there times when you don't see that in the moment, or something happens and you couldn't prepare to be unprepared? If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. It's just that every time it turns out that I wasn't in the unknown. I was in the imagined known. Like I'd made up that I did know what was going to happen and it was going to be awful. And I was living in that, not the actual unknown. There can't be anything scary about the unknown because it's unknown. So if you're scared of what might happen, that's not the unknown. That's your imaginary future that you're making up and acting as if it's, I know what's going to happen here. I'm going to get shot. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. Well, that's not the unknown. Like that's your imagination.
Right.
The unknown's before that. The unknown is the space that you can project all that imagination into or not. You can just show up to it. So it's almost like the fear and discomfort wakes me up to the fact that I'm not in the unknown, that I've started making it up. Which is less helpful, considerably.
Right.
Oh, look, a baby.
Baby just arrived.
Yay.
He lives in the now.
No, am I gonna have to fight Teo for those toys, or can we share?
No, we can. Baby tears.
Oh, please put the headphones in his ears.
He wants to hear you. You met Michael Neill?
Hey, babe. Yeah, we've chatted. It's good. We're good.
So funny.
I'd sing you Hallelujah, but I don't think it would come out quite like when Kaja did.
Kaja did, yeah.
I got a question.
Go for it.
I was wondering like what type of advice would you give to someone that has let their self like sink so deep into that unknown where the unknown has became their reality?
So can you tell me what you mean by sink so deep into it?
Like they created this unknown world. They're and like they became so used to that unknown that that creation that they created inside their head became their reality.
Oh yeah. So the way I would talk to them about it would probably just start with really helping them see the difference between the made up reality, which we all do. Like we all make up realities and then live inside them, and the actual unknown, which is this clean, empty space. It's like an open sky or a still pond where anything can get reflected. Whatever flies over, it's going to get reflected. Like it doesn't have any preference for what gets reflected. Like that's the unknown. As soon as you think you've got to prepare for something, you're preparing for an imaginary known. And so I don't think you can sink too deeply into the real unknown, but you can get absolutely lost in a rabbit hole. Like you can get so into a way of thinking about things that it seems like there's no way out. I love John Grisham books. I always have. And what I love about him is the hero always gets into a situation where you think there is no way out of that. And then suddenly there's a way out. And like that's life. We think our way into corners all the time, but they're not real corners. And just beginning to get a feel for the difference is what seems to help people. Like the idea doesn't help, but you start to get a feel for, oh, hang on, if I'm feeling this like tight, I must think I know what's going to happen then that it's bad. Like that's not the unknown. because there's no feeling to it. And I know it, you know, as a writer and a speaker and like for me, I'm faced with a blank page or an open mic on a regular basis, have been for years. So I know that feeling. I know what it is to just kind of go, okay, let's see what happens. Now, normally I get some idea a little before I start, but actually it's happened that I've literally gotten on stage. I remember this talk I gave to 400 investment bankers or some bizarre thing. And it was when I'd just flown back from Europe, and I had to go do this gig at 8 a.m. about 4 hours from where I live. So I drove down, and I kept thinking, oh, okay, something's going to come to me. Something's going to come to me. Something's going to come to me. And nothing. And I'd get a little nervous. Then I'd go, well, okay, I'm getting nervous because I'm thinking it's going to be terrible when I'm actually there. So that's not real. So I can kind of ride that one out. And that kept happening through the night. And then in the morning, I still had nothing. And I'm beginning to kind of take my thinking a little more seriously and go, well, maybe I should, you know, grab some old talk I gave and do. And I've got all this going on in my head, but mostly I'm watching it. Like I'm just watching the TV on in my head. It's not like it's real. It's just the TV's on and I can't change the channel. Well, I keep thinking this, and then finally they call my name and I go up on stage and I'm looking out at 400 people and I'm thinking, I don't have a freaking clue what to say. And I stood there in my mind, what felt like ages, just thinking, well, something's going to come. It always has. And something came. And then the next thing came and the next thing came. Now, what's interesting is I watched the video back of that talk later. You wouldn't have known. Like it was all, it was all in my head. Like the whole thing was in my head. And so it's just beginning to see imagination is a wonderful thing if you know you're imagining. But if you don't know you're imagining it, it's terrifying. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Cool.
It really is a terrifying thing when you know things ain't real. It's like a dream too. Like when you in a scary dream and like you just imagine all, like your dream is just about scary things, like, and you feel it's real, everything gonna feel real. Like it's gonna feel like everything is gonna feel real. But like when you in a dream and like you know it's just a dream, you can make your own powers. You can do this. You can jump to this world and go about this place. You know, you can do a lot of different things once you know you're just imagining. But if you just imagine it and don't know that, it's gonna be a terrifying experience.
Oh, one of my favorite client stories was this guy, and he had a TV show and he was pretty successful, but he was like on the way down. His show was losing ratings and he was acting out, and the TV company sent him to me to kind of see what I could do with him. And before we started, he told me about this dream that he had. And it was him and Saddam Hussein, who had been dead for ages, but like it was him in the dream, Saddam Hussein and Jamiroquai. And they were going on Jamiroquai's private jet to pick up hookers somewhere in Europe. And he's telling me about like that he realizes that Saddam Hussein has been sleeping with Jamiroquai's wife and Jamiroquai doesn't know. And he's stressing because he's like, I should tell him. I really owe it to Jamiroquai to tell him this, but I don't want to mess up our weekend. And he said he woke up like in a sweat, totally stressed out from this dream. And we were talking later and in the actual session, and he saw like that he thought if his show didn't go well, his life was over. Like that's why it was such a big deal. That's why he was acting out. In his mind, he gets kicked off the air, he's get kicked off the planet. And he saw it, and you could see he got like younger and handsomer in the room. It was like this load off his mind. And then he aged back up. It was like all the thinking came back in, and he went, right, well, what do we do about it? And I was like, well, like, that's like asking me, what do you do about Saddam Hussein sleeping with Jamiroquai's wife? Like it's not really happening. So there's really kind of nothing you got to do about it once you see that it's just a dream. And we just daydream a lot. And
And when, like, looking back from like that moment when you said earlier, like you had a depressive period, and like I know you were close to thinking of like suicide and all that stuff, and that wasn't available. Like, what can you go through like that experience of like how it was coming out of that, not knowing what was, like, you didn't have this way of talking about it. It was just something that happened.
Talking about it, but I did have a moment of what I would now call thought recognition. So like I had a night where it felt like, you know, I always think this sounds ridiculous, but it's exactly what it felt like. It felt like there was a giant vacuum cleaner in the sky trying to suck my heart out of my body. And I was on a 4th floor of a dorm. I was at college, and I'm clinging to the wall, literally clinging to the wall. That's right, Teo, clinging, right? So I'm clinging to the wall, and I phoned the suicide hotline, and I got a busy signal. And I just thought that was the funniest thing that had ever happened. Like, I would love anybody to have gotten on the phone and talked me down better than that busy signal. Because I just thought, oh, I'm cursed. Okay, lightning is going to strike inside this room now, and rain is going to pour, but only on my head. That's where we're at. So it like calmed me down enough to call a friend, and she came and got me. And I woke up the next morning, and I realized for the first time in my life, I didn't want to kill myself, even though I thought about it all the time. And it literally was a game changer, because it was like, oh, that's just a thought. And I started calling it the suicide thought, because it was like, yeah, wow, that thought comes up a lot. And then I started noticing, because it got less scary, so I could notice stuff about it. And I went, oh, that comes out when I'm super stressed. Like, that's my brain's little relief valve, is that thought. And then it was just a thought. Like, it really didn't seem like a big deal. So I didn't know that all thought was like that. Like that was new to me. But it was very liberating to see that thought was. I was going to say, I am staring at a black screen now.
Yeah, we're getting real deep and metaphorical here with your story.
Into the
Edic just has to change.
This is what the unknown looks like, people. This is uncertainty.
The black hole. No, Edic's just changing the battery on the camera. Sorry about that. We can still see you though. Patrick, did you have a question, or did you just unmute yourself by accident?
No, I was gonna say something. I just forgot what I was gonna say. I was just thinking about what he said though, like just his thought process and his perspective is definitely a growing mindset to have. Like, I like the way he thinks. That's all I was saying.
Thanks, man. No, I'll tell another one that I never makes me look very good, but it was another place where I saw the difference between the unknown and the imagined known. So when I was 26, I was about to open so I used to be an actor, and I was about to open in my first big play in London. So it was, the London's equivalent of Broadway. And the week before we opened, my wife comes to my dressing room one night and says that she's pregnant. And in my world, I came from a town where you got each other pregnant and never left. Like, so that was the worst thing that could happen, because getting somebody pregnant meant you had to stop whatever you were doing and make it about the kid. And so I did not respond beautifully, gracefully, or well, but I had enough sense about me to also not be horrific. I just thought, well, crap, it's over. And I look back on it now, and it's funny to me, but like, I really thought I was going to have to become a plumber, and the only way I can make sense of that now is that my next door neighbor had 14 kids and was a plumber. And I must've just thought, well, if you have kids, you got to become a plumber. Like, it made sense at the time. And the only thing that kept me going for the 9 months was, even though I was sure that my life was over and like I was going to have to give up everything that mattered to me, I was also pretty sure that I'm an idiot. Like I'm wrong a lot. I knew that about me. Like that I kind of have these nightmare scenarios in my head. So I thought, well, maybe it's going to turn out I'm wrong about this too. So like I would go back and forth between being absolutely sure that this was the worst thing that had ever happened to me to being absolutely sure that I have no idea what's coming. And it you know, that and a patient wife got me through the 9 months. And then Oliver was born and there were complications. So they had to hand him to me almost immediately. And this was almost 26 years ago now. And I just held him and I fell so deeply in love and the whole thing that I'd been imagining for 9 months fell apart. In fact, I hadn't just been imagining it for 9 months. I'd been imagining it since I was a kid because I grew up thinking, oh, just don't get anyone pregnant. And once the love came in, the only way that I can describe it is it was like all of the things I imagined, actually, most of them were true. Cost us, you know, it's expensive having a kid. It meant I got a lot less sleep. It created all sorts of logistical issues in our lives. But with the feeling of love, I didn't care. Whereas before, when I imagined it, I imagined that it also came with a feeling of being hard and stressed out and pressure. So it was almost like swapping a soundtrack on a movie. Like if you watch movies without soundtracks, sometimes you're like, what's going on? And then the soundtrack comes on and you go, oh, something exciting is happening because it's just the music. Well, if you suddenly swapped in a comedy soundtrack for a drama, you know, it's a whole different movie. And that was what it was like for me. It was like somebody swapped out the soundtracks on what having a baby was. And instead of the horror movie music, it was romantic comedy. And it was like, oh man, this is awesome. We're not sleeping. And hey, let's do a montage where like the baby throws up on each of us and we have to clean each other. And like, it sounds crazy, but it's like, it was really fun. And my wife said to me a couple of years later, she said, you know, it's funny. All the reasons you said you didn't want a kid were true. But, you know, she said, I'm really glad that we didn't take it seriously and think, well, that means therefore don't do it. Because it's been one of the coolest things. I mean, we had more of them. We liked it so much. We had more of them. And so like, that's the thing is, even before I understood this is how it works with everything, I'd had experiences of how it works. I just didn't know, like I said, I didn't know it was always that way. I thought it was just, well, yeah, with the suicide thing. Yeah, with the baby. Yeah. But I didn't see until later, oh no, everything. It's like that all the time with everything.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have a question for Michael? You can write it in the chat box. Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that baby thing. Mine wasn't as dramatic as
vaguely topical.
But yeah, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's funny.
Can I give one other example? Well,
yeah.
Just so one of the more recent experiences I had of confusing the actual unknown with my imaginary unknown, like where I was making up a scary future. So 5 years ago, we went through a business thing where we were owed a bunch of money and we owed a bunch of money. So like a bunch of people owed us money and we owed other people money, and it was enough. We were owed enough money that I wasn't worried about it for a while. And then nobody paid us. And I'd never had that where I couldn't get money from anybody who owed us money. And the people who we owed money to, of course, wanted to get paid. And I started to get more and more wound up. But I understood that the mind and the nature of the mind. And so that really helped me cope with all the stress of this, cash crunch. And I talked to a guy who was coaching me at the time about it, and who worked with a lot of big companies. And I said, how do real CEOs deal with this? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, look, I got 7 employees. I mean, I know about the mind. right? And I am barely holding it together. So how does somebody who's got 7,000 employees and doesn't know about the mind cope? And the guy looked at me and he said, well, variably. They cope variably. And what was so funny was that was all he said, but I saw a whole other thing. I saw that it wasn't my understanding of the mind that was helping me cope. It was my total misunderstanding of the mind that was making it seem like there was something for me to cope with. And the whole thing flipped on its head. And I just went, oh my God, this is not stressful. I am stressing myself out like crazy. But this isn't stressful. This is just life. This is just business. And the whole thing, when I saw that, it was embarrassing, but in a good way. Like, it was like, oh, Jesus, I did it again.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when there was only like a fraction of a second where in my first business that I'd started, it looked like someone had reason to potentially take legal action against us, only for like a day. But that day was like, oh my God, am I about to get sued? Like, what? And I remember calling my dad, who's a real CEO and has had lots of lawsuits to deal with and various debt crises and everything else under the sun with his hundreds of employees and what have you. And I called him. I was like, what do I do? And he laughed and was like, you're not a real company till you've been sued. Congratulate yourself. It was like, this is America. Welcome. And I just thought it was the funniest. It was like a badge of honor in his mind. Like, hey, welcome to the club. I was like assuming my life was ending, you know. Fortunately, it was a total non-issue. It didn't turn into anything, but I just thought that was great. The other thing that I was thinking as I was listening to you is like, both with, you know, having a newborn and, as I talked about earlier, losing loved ones this year, like, I've realized that basically, like, humans can always do hard things. They're just not good at thinking about doing hard things. And I'm not saying I haven't had my share of hard things and everything from, you know, Teo's phase where he was waking up every 2 to 3 hours for like a couple months. I mean, I literally started to have my body like short circuit. It was like, you can't keep doing this. This is not like that kind of hard, to, you know, the kind of sadness we've dealt with hard. But, you know, when you're in it, I'm not sugarcoating or glossing over that it is hard. Like, having a bunch of people not pay you when you owe money, that's hard. But I can assure you that you can do it. Humans do hard things all the time. We've always done hard things all the time. And if you look back on those moments, you always see that there was the real hard, and then there was the nightmare hard, the make-believe hard you talked about. And for some reason, the real hard has some tinge of something else to it because it's real. It's like it has a feeling of beauty or rawness or evolution, or I don't know, there's something more magical. The other one is just shitty and sucky and annoying. And it's like a bad noise in your ear that won't go away. Like,
Well, I always think of it like real problems have solutions.
Yeah.
Imaginary problems don't. And that's why imaginary problems are the ones that drive us crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Does anyone do? I haven't looked at that thing in a while.
I'll check.
Do we have any?
Nope, just a bunch of thumbs up and hearts.
He answers a lot of the questions I be having while he be talking.
I just thought I'd take time.
I was just gonna ask a question, but I'm like, nah, he already answered that. He gonna think I ain't listening. I'm good.
All right. Well, people are loving your stories, Michael, and thank you for taking the time to hop on. And join us
Thanks
this
for having
morning.
me, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool to see
I
you.
always love talking with you.
When the hugging thing's allowed again, trust me.
Yes.
Yes.
We're all over.
We're all over.
All right, take care, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you,
Michael.
Bye.
Okay, so I think we take a 15-minute break now. Is
Yes.
that right?
So we'll take a break, and when we're back, we're going to talk more. And we have two other amazing guests come in.
We
So
have, Michael Nemo.
Michael Nemo, and
an Anna's Inside Alliance program in the prison in Oregon.
mhm,
And then after that, George
have
and Linda.
George
Bransky.
George and Linda Prensky.
So
All right, thank you
definitely
so
come
much,
back. So
everyone.
we'll leave this running. We'll be back
Just stay on the Zoom, and we'll be back
at 20 after the hour.
20 after the hour.
See you guys.
Okay, we are live again. We are back. We got he could be in the shot, it's fine.
Okay. Teo in the tub.
We got Teo in the tub.
It's his favorite
He's
scene.
now up from his nap, and he's ready to go. He's ready for our next guests. I hope everyone got to go to the bathroom. Had a
Free
successful
parenting tip that babies really like sitting in their tubs. We discovered this.
Yeah. Don't buy expensive things to do this. Just buy a tub.
It looks like a large miso soup spoon.
Yeah.
And he likes to hang out in it, whether
Yeah.
there's water in it or not. So.
Yeah. He prefers water though. Okay. Are people ready? Are you guys with us? Please say in the comments if you, I know a few people said they love the morning, love the stories. We really appreciate you guys interacting with us. So,
It is on the shelf there.
okay.
Thanks.
And we're going to bring up our next
guest.
guest. Let's see if Michael's here. Okay, there he is. And he's going to be promoted. Hello, Enrique. I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Okay.
All right, let's see if he rejoins so we can see him.
There he is. Hey, Michael.
Oh,
He's
there he is. So we just got to.
What's going on, Mike?
Hey, what's happening?
Oh, right. I gotta do that.
Hold on a sec. I gotta close.
Okay. Oh, did he close the whole thing?
It appears so. Sally's sadly not in a tub. You know,
Oh, he disappeared.
you could go there. None of us would know. We promise not to
Oh,
turn your
he's here.
camera
He's
on.
here. Oh, there we go. All right, Michael, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear
Nice.
you.
Hi.
Hello. So nice to see you again.
Nice to see you guys too. How you doing?
We're doing really, really good. Thank you so much for doing this on your birthday.
It's his birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Michael. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Thank
to
you.
Happy birthday.
For people who are watching, we better see some happy birthdays in the chats right now, okay? Michael's a special guy. So thank you so much for doing this on your birthday, Michael. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Michael's another person that we were super excited to welcome to Chicago. He was supposed to come for an event that we were hosting on March 20th, but as you all know, coronavirus made that impossible. So while
we decided 1 week before that we couldn't do it.
Well,
Maybe
we decided,
less.
and then it was impossible. Like
Yeah,
shut
then
down
everything was
the
shut
event
down.
space where we were going to have it. And
So
everything,
close.
Yeah. Anyway, therefore, it's really lovely to have you join us on this virtually. Definitely a second best, but we'll take it. And you, just in the last 6 months since I've gotten to know you, are another one of those people that stand out in my mind as just a radiant example of resilience and the capacity for people to deal with the unknown when life really throws them a curveball, and to find grace and solutions and a way forward in a circumstance that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily see the possibility for that. But you did. You're a beautiful example of that. So I'm really excited to share everyone with you today in our virtual celebration of resilience here. So why don't you start by just telling people a little bit about yourself
Yes.
and how we got to magically cross paths with you.
Okay. Well, my name is Michael Nemo, and I'm a teacher with the Inside Alliance based out of Portland, Oregon. And this organization, we go into prisons and teach inmates about the way that their mind works. And I was introduced to Anna Debenham. She came in and taught a class called Insight to Wellbeing. And I had an insight and an experience that pretty much just changed my life. I'm a convicted felon, obviously, since I took this program while I was in prison. I've spent 20 years of my life incarcerated in a maximum security prison. I was just released after a 3-year sentence for weapons charges about 6 months ago. And my life has changed based on what I've learned about how my mind works. And Mara and Eric, I met while I was actually incarcerated. They came into the prison and did a whole little special thing. And I had the opportunity to meet them and interact with them. And I was really super excited about getting out and being able to work with them. And, you know, amazingly enough, everything has come together. And now we are working together out here. And I'm just super excited to be a part of everything. And thank you for inviting me.
Feeling this definitely mutual.
And what have you like? What have you seen? I know this sounds like a weird question, but like, what have you seen about the human spirit or resilience in yourself and in people you've met throughout your life? And if you have any examples come to mind, you can share that. If not, you can just share whatever comes to your mind.
Okay, you know, the one thing that I've realized, you know, resilience is a word that was never really a part of my vocabulary before I had the understanding that I had and you know, the insights that I've had. I've always considered myself to be a resilient human being. I have gone through some very trying times in my life, as I'm sure we all have. But the one thing that I've noticed about myself, and you know, if you were to have a conversation with me 5 years ago, I would tell you that I'm a survivor, and I always bounce back. In one way or another, I'm going to come out on top. And to me, that's what resilience means. And I have a deeper understanding of the word resilience now, and it's actually an important part of my vocabulary, because what I've learned about myself is that my innate ability to bounce back is exactly that. It's innate. It's something that's built into the system. It's something that every single one of us are born with from the day that we come onto this planet. And by learning and understanding that resilience is built into the system, I've managed to find a certain measure of relief. I take comfort in the fact that I know that regardless of what kind of situation or what kind of problems that I'm encountering in my life at any given point in time, I know that I have the innate ability of resilience. I know that I'm going to bounce back, and I know that I'm always going to come out on top, because that's just the nature of the way things work. I put a lot of thought and a lot of thinking in a feeling like I need to control my life, or I need to do certain things and take certain steps in order to be resilient. And what I'm finding and what I understand and know now is that I don't need to do anything. The resilience is already there. All I need to do is just kind of live in the moment and be present. And as long as I do that and I put my best foot forward in the moment, everything's going to be all right.
Yes. Yes. That's so cool. It's exactly like we talked about in the beginning of this. Like, in the moment, it's all there. Like, everything is there that we need, already there. Like, it's not anywhere else. It's like it's already there. And I love how you talk about that. And like, that's what I love about Anna too, because, you know, she will literally light on her things that she's doing. Like, there's nothing wrong with people like walk past like, what's this? You know what I mean? How would, like, who says stuff like that? And that has you like reframe how you think about everything. Like that something is already there versus something you have to work towards. It's like a completely, it's like a completely mind-bending thing that we are not taught at all growing up. You know, our eyes look out and the world tends to say, do these things and then you'll feel certain ways, or like what you're searching for is outside of you in these things. So that it's already there and it doesn't require anything is huge.
It is huge. It is huge. It definitely it's changed my whole what they would call a paradigm shift. Like my whole perception of the world and everything has just completely flipped. Yeah.
Do you have any examples, Michael, of how, you know, since you've been out now, how you feel like you're living life just it feels very like profound, but also simple and relaxing to know now that it is, resilience is innate to you. You don't have to work hard at it, compared to kind of your old paradigm and how you feel now about life. Like, do you have examples you can share of things that have just gone smoother than they would have in the past, or where you really maybe things kind of got bad for a second and you had to really remind yourself of that or draw on it in a way where it was like, oh, whoa, that was a close one?
Man, how much time do we have? You know, as a person coming out of a correctional facility and being incarcerated for so many years, I felt like I had to do everything. I felt like, you know, I had to have this plan and everything had to be organized, and I needed to do A, B, C, D, and E in that order, and that's going to make everything in my life work out the way that I need it to work out. Okay. And as we all know, the life just doesn't work like that. So this is a trial. It's a trial the word I'm looking for? It's difficult for a person coming out of a correctional facility because, you know, the expectations on us are a lot different. And so the one thing that I found coming out is that, you know, I had this big plan and I had all these ideas and things that I wanted to do and experience, and oh my God, life is going to be crazy and it's going to be awesome. And I walked out of prison and straight into a pandemic. and this pandemic is like taking all of the A, B, C, D, and E that I thought that I needed to do in order for me to be okay, and pretty much just shot a hole and sunk it to the bottom of the river. Because I'm telling you, like nothing has gone according to my plan. However, I have that innate sense of well-being. I have an innate sense of resilience. And the one thing that this has been so helpful to me, and it's been so profound. Here's an example. Today is my birthday. I'm 50 years old. I'm half a century old. That's crazy to hear it said like that, huh? Anyway, I can't do anything. You know, I can't go out to dinner. I can't go play mini golf. I can't go to a movie. I can't go to the mall and buy myself a new pair of shoes. I mean, and you know, normally in the past, the way that I would have addressed that is I would have been angry and I would have been upset and I would have been, you know, a lot of time just, you know, complaining and just being upset, just general anxiety about the fact that it's my birthday and there's this pandemic, and, you know, trying to place the blame. Oh, it's China's fault or anything, like whatever, you know, just trying to place the blame and trying to do something that's going to make myself feel better. And based on the resilience that I have and the understanding and the things that I've learned, I don't feel like that. I'm totally happy. I'm totally content just being at home with my wife. I'm totally content being home with my dog. I'm totally content doing a little work around the house or whatever. I'm cool with just sitting and hanging out and watching the rain fall outside. You know, I don't have a whole lot of thinking about this pandemic and what it is that I can do and what it is that I can't do. None of that matters. None of it matters. And so what I find is that my resilience is just that, you know, there's no stress and anxiety because I understand the thinking process involved with what I'm doing. And so based on the fact that I understand the thinking process, it makes it so that I don't take on the responsibility of feeling like I need to control everything. I don't need to control anything. All I need to do is just sit and be present in the moment. And, you know, that resilience is going to get me through. Kind of a long ways around. Did I answer your question?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Great job. Amazing answer. Well, and I joked with Anna. She was on the last time we did this, and I was telling her about when we talked, and she, she's, well, you obviously know because you work with her now, but she's doing the different recorded videos to send in to get on prison TV because she can't go in now, obviously. And hey,
Yeah, we agreed to.
And I said, Anna, you should really be getting them to send videos out here to all of us, because people out here are freaking out about having their privileges taken away, their normal ability to kind of walk around freely and go to the shop when they want, go to the restaurant when they want, go buy themselves a pair of shoes on their birthday. Like, right. You guys have some experience and some wisdom learning how to find that resilience and truly, I know from talking to you, find joy even in incarceration, having all of your, what we normally think of as freedoms taken away from you. And it's, I'm sure, not always hysterical to you, but you got to have a good laugh. It's funny that you came out of, as you said, out of prison and into a pandemic. It's like a different version of prison.
Right.
But I think everything that you just shared is why I was joking with Anna that you guys are really the ones that should be teaching all of us right now, because you have so much wisdom to share about just hanging out, watching the rain, not having a lot of thinking about it, not needing to place blame. Like, I think that's a really cool shift that you just highlighted. It's like, when people relax and trust that they have what they need on the inside, they don't go trying to blame it away on the outside, explain it away on the outside, which just creates such an enormous sense of frustration. And you feel like a victim in life. And when you feel like a victim in life, you have to then do things to other people to feel better, which is where we all get ourselves into trouble in marriages and parenting, with friends, with not friends, people on the street, other countries, like you said, blame China. You can see how when people think that their well-being is coming and going outside of them, then they try to do things outside of them to feel better about it. And it just gets so messy so fast. So yeah, there's a lot of juicy, good stuff you said in there.
Thank you. You mentioned, being incarcerated and coming back out to this. It's been my experience, and I've had a few conversations, with people. And the one thing that I've noticed is that there's a lot of people out here who are enduring this pandemic. And, people feel like everything's been taken away from them. They feel like, I don't have anything. I can't do anything. I can't do this. I can't do that. And, let me just reiterate the fact real quick that, I spent 20 years of my life incarcerated in a maximum security prison. Okay. So to anybody out there listening right now who thinks that you've lost something due to a quarantine and the fact that, you need to hang out at home and not go to the mall or whatever, yeah, you haven't lost anything. As a matter of fact, you've gained everything. When you're in prison, you have nothing. And when you feel that kind of loss, when you're experiencing that kind of loss and that, oh man, it's just like a barren, it's like a hole inside of you. And it's something that I can't go into, and I don't have the time to try to explain, to anybody how lonely and isolated being in a prison type environment is. And to be in a prison type environment like that and start to learn and come to the understanding of how my mind works, and the fact that like my whole reality is created through thought, I was able, in like extreme circumstances, to find a certain balance. I was able to find a balance that was able to, like, literally, I set the cruise control and I sailed right through what I had to do. And then coming out here and having to deal with the pandemic, and then listening to, people talk about how they've lost everything and they can't do anything. And, me coming from my background and my experience, I have to just say, look, I totally get what you're saying, and I'm empathetic to what you're saying, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, everything is cool, until you've come from an incarcerated place and then come out to here, even in the middle of a pandemic. It's like there's nothing, absolutely nothing going on out here that makes me feel deprived in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it'd be nice to go to the mall, but hey, you know what? I'm saving $60. I might have an emergency come up. I might have a neighbor that his tire blows out on his car and he's in between paychecks, or he's not getting he didn't get his stimulus check, or he didn't get his unemployment or whatever. And then that $60 that I would have spent on shoes, now I can turn around and I can give it to my neighbor and be like, hey man, let's go get you a new tire for your car. It allows me to be of service to somebody. And that's the thing that's kept me going. And that's that resilience that's built inside of me. It's that not only am I out here dealing and surviving in a pandemic just like everybody else, but I'm looking at this and I see this as an opportunity to broaden my, I broaden like my ability to be of service to people, my ability to do things that I wouldn't normally do, like just, take a walk in the rain. Like, I barbecued yesterday and I did it in the rain. It's pouring down rain and like neighbors are running trying to pull their stuff in, and I'm out there with the barbecue grill smoking all the hell, and my girl's sitting out there and we're just like, people are like, dude, it's raining. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just a subtle reminder that I'm not dead yet. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
I'm still alive, and life is good, and I'm living in the moment, and it's just a little water falling out of the sky, and it's just like so many things. It's just so amazing, and it's so beautiful to be out of prison and be experiencing the life. Even though I'm quarantined, life is still beautiful and amazing, and I have so many different experiences now that I wouldn't normally have were it not for this pandemic.
Yes.
I like to make a comment.
Yeah, go for it.
What you were saying, like, it struck to me, because when I first heard that it was going to be okay, let me start over. Before the pandemic, I was not going outside. Like, I was a homebound person. I went to work and back home. That was my two places. And then, like, immediately, as soon as I heard about the pandemic, everything went in my, dang, I can't go outside. Dang, I can't go to the mall. Dang, I can't do this. Like, I would just create so many things that I can't do now that it's a pandemic to stress my own self out. But I really wasn't doing none of that before the pandemic. And then when I realized that, like,
what you said, like I can save money, I can do this around the house, I can do out the bed. I'm like, dang, I really can do stuff. So all that negative energy just exit up out my head. And it's funny because it's like the mind plays tricks on you anyway, because it's like your mind will never think about to do none of those things if the pandemic was around. But now the pandemic, now I want to go outside. Now I want to go do this and do that. So I'm like, dang. And it's like funny how you can change your perspective so easy in a way. It's like funny because once you realize that you're doing it, you can just change it. Like, man, I wasn't doing that up in the first place. I could save my $60. I could save me some new shoes. You feel? I could do a lot of different things instead of just freak out about the pandemic.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
That's real talk right there. That's real talk. Yep.
Dejan's like, damn it, I can't go to my knitting club anymore. Oh, wait, I was never in a knitting club.
I never went to a knitting club. And you know, I think that's just, I think it's just a part of like the misprogramming that we've had growing up. You know, Mara, like you said, you know, the things that we talk about and the things that we share with people and the things that we teach to people is that, you know, it's always there. It's always been there. And I think we have a tendency to get so caught up in our thinking that we don't even realize half the time. I'm going to go ahead and say 75% of the time that we don't even realize that we're thinking chaos. It's like, you know, like Dejan was saying, I mean, you weren't even doing that before the pandemic, but now that there's this big word, this big pandemic thing going on out here, you know what I mean? Now all of a sudden you feel like you can't do the stuff that pops into your head that you want to do. And I like the way you said that, man. Like I wasn't doing that before, so it really doesn't make a difference now. And it's just because, well, I can't say why it is, but it just is what it is. And like Dejan, man, I feel blessed. I feel blessed to just be out here in the community. I am not incarcerated in a building where I don't have my freedoms and my liberties. And, you know, if I can walk out in my front yard and hug a tree, then man, I'm telling you, I'm doing 10 billion times better than I was doing, you know, 9 months ago. So, you know, to anybody listening, you know what I'm saying? If you're having a hard time with this pandemic, then let me just encourage you to, after this thing is over, walk outside, look for the first tree that you can find and go hug that tree. Literally, just go wrap your arms around that tree, okay? Because it's an experience. And I mean, I know it sounds silly, but it's real talk. I'm telling you, I've hugged a few trees since I've been out, you know, and it's just learning to take advantage and really enjoy and appreciate the really simple things in life. I mean, something as simple as a freaking tree, man, and watching it bloom and the flowers. And, you know, people say stop and smell the roses. And like literally, I've been walking down the street and I've seen like flowers and little things, and I stop and I smell them. Why? Because I can. And this pandemic has offered me an opportunity to get out and do things and be places that I wouldn't normally be, to where I can have these experiences that I wouldn't normally have were it not for the pandemic. So the pandemic in some ways is actually proving to be a blessing instead of a hindrance. It's just a matter of perspective.
Yeah, someone just wrote, tree hugging seems to be a theme here, LOL. I'm going to the park after this and finding my tree. So, Michael, this is crazy. You weren't on this morning when I was talking, and I talked about hugging a tree. Were you?
I wasn't.
That is awesome. We were on the same wavelength, and you didn't even know it. It's great. Later, you can watch the beginning. We had a whole conversation about my hugging trees and how they healed me. So I feel you. I feel you.
Wow. See, that's
Yeah.
And that just gives credence to everything that we're talking about here. You know, your life can seem like it's in a state of chaos, and you can, you know, it's just, I don't know, there's just an energy, and I think it's super cool to hear you say that you were talking about hugging trees earlier. I mean, what are the odds that I didn't even see that, and then I come on and I start talking about hugging trees, man? You know, life has a natural flow. There's something that exists in the world that we don't fully understand. Okay, and this energy flows through me. It is me. It is a part of me. It's Prince. It's Dejan. It's Eric and Mara. It's all of us. This same energy flows through all of us, okay? And I believe, it's my opinion, that it's this energy that allows us, that when we come together in a situation like this, that it's not uncommon and it's not unusual that the thoughts start commingling together to where, you know, like you said, Mara, we're on the same wavelength. Like, there's something happening that we really don't fully understand, but it's super freaking amazing. It really is.
That's awesome.
People are loving this.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I'm just blown away. And Michael is so articulate. His clarity and grounding is obviously a blessing to him. His peace of mind, likely those around him. Man, people are loving this. You're speaking truth, Michael.
Teo's loving it too.
Teo's loving it too.
Yes.
Real, recognize real.
That's
Yeah.
what Dejan has always said.
Yeah, real, recognize real. Yeah, thank you for all the birthday wishes. There's a lot of people. I don't know you, but thank you so much. It's cool.
That's cool. You're doing a big
Hey,
global
here's another
happy
thing,
birthday.
man. Were it not for the pandemic, I wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
We would be doing something in a different way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, this is an opportunity for me. I'm getting birthday wishes, and it's just super cool. I mean, come on.
I have to tell a funny story.
How cool is this?
That's true. It's so cool.
Was it on Tuesday morning? It was Tuesday morning when I woke up and I looked at our calendar. Or no, I looked at the weather, and it was going to be rainy here all week. And then it was supposed to be beautiful on Saturday today, which it is. And we live in Chicago. It's been pretty cold. It's May. It still hasn't been super warm yet. I'm like antsy for spring weather. And I see that it's supposed to be really nice on Saturday. And I'm like, oh, great. We'll like get in the car and go somewhere. You know, me, Ada, and Teo, we'll go be in nature. And then all of a sudden I see we have this thing, this 4-hour virtual thing. And I looked at Ada and I'm like, do we have to? Can we move it? Like, and I started crying. I was like, I just want to go outside with my family and enjoy the weather. And of course, he kind of gave me this look like, are you okay? Like, why don't you think on it? If you still feel that way tomorrow, we can talk about it, but let's just leave it for now. And of course, I got over it and realized that there will be more hours in the day after this. We can still go outside and do something. And lo and behold, we went outside multiple times this week, even in the cold rain. Like you said, it's just a reminder I'm still alive. I love that. But sitting here right now, it's like you said, if it weren't for the pandemic, we wouldn't be having this birthday experience. And we didn't even know last Tuesday that you would be joining us today. But I can honestly say, from the bottom of my heart, I would rather be nowhere else than right here, right now with you lovely people. So yeah. I'm glad that this turned out the way it did.
Pretty awesome.
And I agree, the feeling is very mutual. I would be nowhere else but here. Trust me.
I didn't hear that. Could you say that again, bro?
I would be nowhere else but here either. Trust me, nowhere else but here.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any questions?
No, I just see people loving it. I don't see any questions. Just a lot of happy birthday from Denmark, from Norway. From
Truth bomb, happy birthday.
Bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
You know, and I just wanted to say that there was, let me see. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm probably gonna butcher your name, and I'm so very sorry. But Vibhuti Bindi. Anyway, he said it really does, or she said that it really does sound silly hugging a tree, but still feel like trying. And you know, I've been there's a lot of stuff here, but that really just caught my eye and caught my attention. And you know, it really does sound silly. You know, most of the time, who's ever hugged a tree? Coming from a person who's been incarcerated, it's super cool to hug a tree, okay? Because the one thing that you can't do when you're incarcerated is hug a tree. And you can't smell a flower. I find a lot of pleasure in doing things that, you know, involve nature. And, you know, like I know it sounds crazy to hug a tree, but let me just tell you, for me, what I get out of it, like when I wrap my arms around a tree and I feel the bark against my skin, and I'm just like, okay, I'm being a complete fucking idiot right now because I'm hugging this tree, but I'm connected. And why am I hugging the tree? Because I can. And if I was incarcerated, I wouldn't be able to hug that tree. I wouldn't be able to have that experience. If I was not alive, I wouldn't be able to hug that tree and have that experience. If I was bedridden with some terminal illness, I wouldn't be able to get out and hug that tree, you know. But I'm not. I'm alive today, and even though I'm struggling through this pandemic just like everybody else, I'm alive, and I have that resilience in me, and I do things that are a little bit off the radar because I can. It's important to understand that, like, because you can. I mean, you're alive, and that's a beautiful thing. And the resilience that's coursing through you is just like, you know, live. Go ahead, live a little. I dare you. Hug a tree. I dare you. Just take pleasure, take pride in just the moment, in just being silly for just a second.
Right,
It's
because
an
you can.
experience that you probably never have, and you may not ever have it again, but you'll be able to say in that moment, you know what, man? Michael said hug a tree, and I did, and it was freaking awesome.
It is. It is. It is.
Oh, we got a good one here. I realize this is the first time I've tried to imagine what it's like to be incarcerated. It seems unimaginable in a way that helps me appreciate my life in new ways. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Completely new perspective. Yeah.
You are a great speaker. You are.
You're a great speaker. You are.
And you know, and that's a huge thing for me too. You know, after coming out and being out here, you know, and I'm not trying to make myself unique or sound like I'm unique or any different from anybody else, because we're all exactly the same, and everything that runs through me and runs through, you know, that everything that's in me is in every single other person. Okay, is what I'm trying to say. And sorry, I just lost that train of thought, but just give me a second and it'll come back to me.
No, well, that was good what you just said.
You don't need to have more than that, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, what I was trying to say is that I have a zest for life. You know, when you've come from an 8x10 cell and you come out here, you know, when you go from nothing to coming out here and having everything, it's like it gives you a certain zest for life. Like, I am really, really glad to be alive today. And I'm glad to be free. I'm glad to have my freedom. I'm glad to be out here where I can do silly stuff like hug a tree. I'm glad that I have the ability to sit and be on this panel and talk to these. It looks like we got 60 people out there listening right now. I wish I could see every single one of you, but I can't. But I have a zest for life because I've come from a life where I've had nothing. And when you come from nothing back out here into everything, and then you see all the people out here who have everything and think they have nothing, it's like, okay, wait a minute here. There's a little bit of confusion going on here, but yeah.
That's so true.
The tree hugger in me has to say one more thing, is that I agree with you, hug a tree because you can, but also what you said is so, everything that's in me is in you, is in everyone. And I've realized it's also in the tree. And I think that's why we like the feeling of the tree, is because that life force, it's that real recognizes real, life recognizes life. And there's something awe-inspiring about seeing life where you'd been blind to it before, where you just walked by it. You talk about smelling the roses or hugging the tree. It's like you didn't appreciate the amount of life that was there until it was taken away from you for a while. And I know for me, it was just, I did not appreciate it, but I didn't appreciate it. It was like I had exposure to it. I've always loved being in nature. I've loved hiking, but I've never had deep respect and awe for the sameness that life is. And I see, what's happening with how humanity treats the environment. And I think that's the only missing piece, is we've lost touch with that respect for life, that what you're talking about, that resilience that you're pointing to, the life force that's in you is in every living thing in this universe. And that's why we can heal a lot of the destruction we've done in our lives, to ourselves, to each other, to nature, by seeing more deeply what you're talking about. So I love the go hug a tree because you can, and also because you can feel the feelings that we're talking about here are in as much in that tree as they are in Teo.
Yeah, as much as in Teo. He's agreeing. He
Yeah,
knows.
He knows. He's smiling. I wish you guys could see his face. He's smiling. He's like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, let's see if there's any last ones here. These hours are so amazing. Thank you guys for all this time and spending your time here.
You're gonna break that mug.
Is there anything that you guys want to add or want to say?
I have something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just seen a question here. It says, what was the first mind-blowing insight that really changed everything for you and your experience in the prison? And what behaviors have changed as a result of this insight? Do I have time to answer this, Eric?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, this is super cool. Check this out. So I was in a program. I was participating in a cognitive rehabilitation program, and we have a bunch of other guys in there, and it's all like peer support kind of thing or whatever. Anyway, there's some people in there who get on the program train or whatever, and like they want to be like that person, and they feel like like they're kind of in charge, and they've been there longer than anybody. Anyway, long story short, so I had a little conflict with some guys in there, and I've been told that I have a little bit of an attitude problem, or had a little bit of an attitude problem. I was really inclined towards violence. I'm one of those guys that I don't got time to sit here and talk to you. Let's just fight and get her done, and just move on. And so I had a conflict with a couple guys in this program, and they ended up going to staff and just made up a bunch of things that weren't true. And by them doing this, I felt like that could have compromised my program and me possibly getting a time cut or anything like that. So I got angry and I got frustrated about that. So the end of the day comes around, and we're sitting. I'm in. Everybody's in bed. It's like about midnight, and I'm sitting in bed, and I have some headphones in, and I'm listening to some music, and I'm super angry. I'm really angry, and two of the three guys that I had this encounter with were living in the same little room that I was in. There's like 8 of us to a room. So these guys are laying in bed, and like one of them is directly here and the other one is directly here, and they're right across from me, and they're laying in bed and they're just sleeping like babies. You know, I'm sure they're counting sheep or whatever, dreaming about floating the river or whatever. But you know, I'm sitting there and I'm angry and I'm in a rage, and I'm looking at these guys while they're sleeping, and I'm not counting sheep. I'm counting the ways that and the things that I could possibly do to these guys while they're sleeping. Like, I can do physical damage to you right now, and you're oblivious to that fact. All right. So I'm saying this just to give you an example of the frustration and the anger and the hostility that I've come from. Okay. So I'm sitting there in the bed, and I've been doing this for hours. Okay. It was like before midnight when everybody's asleep, and I ended up sitting there. It had been about 3-4 hours, and it was 3:06 in the morning. And at 3:06 in the morning, I had an insight. As I was sitting there and I was being angry, I felt that my body, like, you know, when you get frustrated, you kind of hold your body, you tense it up. There's just a tension there, and you don't really know that you're holding yourself, like your tension, until you actually relax and let it go. And you're like, holy shit, God, I just realized, well, what I was doing when I was sitting up against the wall, like I was so tense that I felt it in my back. My back was really sore, and I just had a realization of how sore my back was. And so I just like relaxed a little bit. Like, I just relaxed. Okay. And when I relaxed, the pain eased from my back. And it was in that moment right there. And I looked at the clock. I'm telling you, 3:06 a.m. in the morning. Boom. Everything changed. Everything changed in that moment, because I realized that I was angry, and I was thinking these angry thoughts, and I was thinking these violent thoughts, and all of this stuff that was going on in my head at the time. And as a result of the thinking that I was having, I was causing my body to have this just tension that was just ridiculous. And with one simple thought, I was able to change everything. Like, my body relaxed. And I realized, like, wait a minute. I've been sitting here thinking myself angry for hours. Literally hours, in the middle of the night while everybody else is sleeping. I'm sitting here thinking myself more and more and more and more and more pissed off. Like, literally, I was just building myself up to where, as in the past, if this would have continued, the chances of there actually being a physical conflict in the morning when these dudes actually got up out of bed it was really high. Okay. Whereas the next day I woke up and I walked up to these guys and I met them, and I said, I told them, I says, I said, I just want to apologize, man, for whatever part that I played. I feel like it was a misunderstanding, but if you guys feel like I offended you in some way, shape, or form, I'm sorry, man. I'm really sorry. And I just want you guys to know that I'm sorry. Okay. And then what that did was that changed the whole dynamic between the 3 people that I'd had the conflict with the day before. So it's just so profound to me that just one thought changed everything. And literally, like, the next day when I readdressed the situation, like, the conflict was gone. And it turned out that I developed a relationship with these 3 guys that I was with, to the point to where I never would have even thought that it was possible before. I didn't want anything to do with those guys. But once I understood, and once I had that insight that it was my thinking that was causing the problem and not them, it just changed everything for me. So to answer your question, that right there, that incident, that scenario is the number one thing that it's why I'm here. And it's why I'm doing what I'm doing today, because of that insight that I had.
So cool.
That was powerful.
That was powerful. Yeah, I'm so glad we had that last question.
Yeah, I never heard you tell that. That's amazing.
That was so good.
That was spicy, man.
That was
That was a spicy joint.
Mumber's the best speaker. Love that. This live is so good. That's awesome. That's so good. I'm so glad you spent your birthday with us, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
You're giving us gifts.
My
Best
pleasure.
birthday
it's your
present
birthday.
ever.
Go, Jordy. It's your birthday.
All right. Sadly, though, we actually got to move on to the next speaker, but we really, really appreciate you, Michael. And of course, we're going to do more together virtually, and I can't wait to do it face to face sooner rather than later. And I'll hug you like a tree.
Yeah.
Nice. I will hug you like a tree too.
I'll hug you like a tree. That's my
What's
new
up with my
thing.
boys
Perfect.
down there? What's up with you boys?
Yeah. Really
Yeah.
wants
Hey,
these
thank you
headphones.
so much for inviting me to be a part of this, and I
Are you
hope that I
kidding?
said something that resonated with somebody or anybody.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just really, everything I say is just coming from my heart, man. And I just want to share the love and the joy that I feel in life right now, man. It's so amazing. And it's all a result of learning what I've learned about resilience and the mind.
Thank you.
Found.
Thank you so much.
Andrea says it best. Magic man. You were magic today, Michael. Thank
Magic
you
man, yeah.
so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. You have an awesome day.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here, but thanks for inviting me. And I love everybody. I love you guys, all of you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Wow. Man, these 4-hour lives are really good every time.
Yeah, we going crazy today.
The truth is just
I know. Okay. We got one last one, guys.
from England. Thank you, guys.
I think you're from England. So let me see if he'll be on the. Oh, there's two Linda here. Okay. I hope this is the one. If not, I'll do the other one. All right. So let's see if she comes on. Well, let's see if she'll come on first, and then.
Tayo, you are a busy little bee over here. Do you want to say anything to the crowd?
Let's see. All right, so we got to just put on the. Oh, is this the right one?
That's the one that's on their kitchen floor.
Yeah, we hear a little bit of echo. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to remove that one. Now, George, can you hear us?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, can you show the T-shirt you're wearing?
Another OG.
All right, Rebels
Hey,
speak.
man, there's too many OGs going around. It's just too many. Like my head's spinning right now. It's too many OGs, man.
Here it is,
Jeez.
guys.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wish we'd worn ours.
Oh,
Man, everybody got on the rebel.
I
This is great.
I think that's the uniform of the day.
Yeah.
That's the uniform of the day.
We got rebels in Norway, rebels in Washington, rebels in Chicago. That's great. So cool.
That's amazing. So good to see you, George.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Oh, people want to buy T-shirts.
People want to buy the
this
shirt
is
now.
gonna happen. We got to figure that out. Got a few different versions.
Figure in the sale, the shirts in this deal.
This is not a sponsored video. We're just gotta make sure we're not doing that.
There's a lot of product placement.
We're
going on here.
paying George a hefty sum to wear this shirt.
George is the influencer that we got to wear the shirt. Well, George, we're so grateful that you were able to join us today. It's always a treat to see you. Obviously, you're a very dear friend of ours, but I know for the folks who are on this webinar, some of them might be hearing from you for the first time. And in particular, we just wanted to share you with the audience today because you're also someone who I think has very gracefully gone through an experience of the unknown very recently. And so it's very fresh for you, and you've seen a lot with a lot of depth and beauty. So we just wanted to share you with the world. So yeah, maybe if you could just start by sharing how you've been doing in the last few months and what you've been seeing that's been helping you navigate an unknown you'd never had to walk through before.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get a shout out to the tree huggers, though. I feel like I'm missing something that I wasn't. That I don't have a tree to hug.
You got the best trees out there in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh,
You can go hug away after this.
Well, Mara and Eric, and Dale, I was trying to think of where to start in this journey, and well, I'd like to start, and I'd like to have Linda join me.
Yes. Just bring her into the screen if you want. She's right there.
Yeah. You know, I woke up one morning, and I realized that I had a lot of let me see how to say it. I had a lot of paralysis, and I had the paralysis so much so that I couldn't talk, and I couldn't really feel anything. And of course, that was very shocking for me. And I honestly, there was a period of time that I lost. It was gone. I was just it wasn't in my memory, and all of a sudden, that was my reality. And I really was in a position where I had to start over in my development, and I really owe a lot of that ability to do that to Linda. She was the one. She was my coach and my inspiration for doing that. And I'll tell you what really helped me. What really helped me is I didn't get disheartened, and even when you know, my spirits were very buoyant from the beginning, and that made that was a game changer, because a lot of the people who were in the same ward as me, when they got depressed, it totally hurt them big time. Because when they got depressed and disheartened, their energy level went down. They couldn't have a vision for themselves. They couldn't understand where to go from here, and they were everything was working against them, and I was fortunate in that I knew that resilience was really the only thing that I needed. Is if I could just be resilient, that would be a game changer. And just going forward on that, my cardiologist fought for me to be you might say a student of, not a student, but fought for me to be no, what's the word?
To get into an intensive rehab program.
Yeah, yeah. He fought for me to be in an intensive rehab program. Now, Kaiser said, well, why would we put George Pransky in a intensive rehab program? Why would we do that? Because he's already doing okay. So we don't want people who are doing okay in the program. We want people who are not doing so okay. So we want to concentrate our energy on people who are not doing okay. Well, my doctor said, look, George could do terrific if you put him in this program. He's just the kind of person who would thrive with this kind of rehab program. So it represented me, you know, the old statement that the rich get richer. It represented to me that because of my resilience, I had opportunities that other people didn't have. So the hospital gave me opportunities, the rehab center gave me opportunities that I could take advantage of. And that made a huge difference, because I, with Linda's support and with the doctor going to bat for me, I felt like I had, I felt like I had a huge opportunity that I just wouldn't have otherwise. There were a lot of people who were there, and I didn't have the opportunity that they had.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Well, what happened 11 months ago, to just give you some context, is that George had open heart surgery, had bypass surgery, and it was basically because they said, look, you're a heart attack waiting to happen, so you might as well just go ahead and get your heart replumbed. So what they do is they basically take veins from your legs and put them into your heart and give you new arteries. And the cardiac surgeon was thrilled. After the operation, said it was perfect, he did great, it was amazing, I'm so pleased. So we were very, very joyful about this. But then one of the side effects of open heart surgery can be a stroke. So about 16 hours later, in the middle of the night, they called me and said that George had a stroke. And I ran to the hospital. And my first thought was, if I can see him, if I can see the essence of him, I'll be okay. Okay, so I ran into the room and I looked at him and I said, hi, babe. And he says to me, hi, babe. And it's like, in that moment, I felt so hopeful and so much gratitude. It just washed over me. It was just incredible. But then I saw what we were up against. And what we're up against is he had lost 90% of his ability to comprehend what people said to him. He lost 90% of his ability to talk, and he lost 90% of his ability to move his right side. And when I saw that, I just went into complete panic, from hope and gratitude into panic. But here's the deal. Here's what matters. This is what matters. I knew it was the wrong direction. I knew it's like, no, that's not the right direction to be in. And even though I would be in that state of mind, I knew I would fall out of it. And I knew, like George said, resiliency brought him opportunity. His resiliency brought him opportunity. Well, what brought me clarity of mind and what brought me vision was hope and gratitude. Was hope, the feeling of hope and the feeling of gratitude brought me vision for what was possible. And I became this amazing, oh, no, we're not going there. We're rehabbing you out of this, you know, out of hope, out of resiliency, out of the feeling of gratitude. You see possibilities. You see what's possible. And I have to say something I heard Dijon say when he was talking with Michael, which I thought was profound. When he was talking about dreaming and imagination and how, you know, you don't have to pay, it's just dreams and imagination. You don't have to pay attention to it. It's just, you can just push it aside because it's just dreams. I know I'm not saying it the way as well as you said it, Dijon, but when you just push all of that stuff aside, there's something else. There's something else. And that something else is what's possible. And you can dream what's possible. And George and I dreamt what was possible. And the thing is, it's not that it was easy, it was hard. This was hard. And I would be in the whole not knowing, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. But it's true. And it's what Michael said, when you're not with the last Michael, I don't know his last name, but the last Michael that was incarcerated, when he said, when you're not thinking about things, when you're in the moment, when you're just up against what you're up against, it's easy. I mean, it's when you're not in your head and when you're not thinking about it in a fearful or insecure way, and you're just with the moment, man, everybody comes up with solutions. And everybody comes up with creative thought. And that's what happened to me, is that I would just, when I wasn't worried, I wasn't anxious, I would just come up with creative thought in the moment. It wasn't a problem. It's so cool. That is so cool. But the thing is, I didn't realize, here's what's interesting. I didn't realize how much my anxiety and worry was about how I didn't want things to change. Like, I didn't want a new reality. I wanted my old reality. I wanted my old life. I wanted my life the way it was. But that's not what happened. You have to see what's in front of you. And no matter what's in front of you, if you see it without all of your extra add-on thinking of worry or I don't want that, I want this. If you just look and see what's in front of you, you can do it. And you can feel fantastic about it. You could feel fantastic about it. Like I decided that, in my mind, I had this idea that I love working with people. And that's what I do. I work with people to educate them how their minds work. And I love it. Well, I realized that I wanted to be that. I didn't want to be a caretaker. I wanted to be that. And I realized it was too much for me. I had to be one or the other. So I gave up. I'm working a little bit. Basically, I'm on sabbatical now from work. And I'm a caretaker and I love it. But in my mind, I didn't. But when I got there in real time, I did. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah.
one,
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
like,
Perfect sense.
like one thing that I had to take in stride is I thought that my days as a seminar leader in
A teacher.
a teacher were coming to an end, because I knew that I wasn't going to express myself as well as I wanted to, or as well as I had to express myself in order to be a counselor or be a coach. So I just had this moment when I saw, my God, my years as a seminar leader and a coach are toast. They're gone. That I have to look for another profession. That's what I thought, and it took a little bit of doing to get over those feelings, because it was really what really what I wanted to do with my life, and it was a hard pill to swallow, that those dreams were never going to get fulfilled. But I did, fortunately, rise above that. And when I did rise above that, I saw how much that thinking was a two-edged sword, because I made up my mind that I had to do something else with my life. And I know this is a little disjointed, but I want to get things out that I wanted to express. But I also saw that I had gifts and capabilities that I didn't have before I had my stroke. So I had certain abilities to intuition. I had certain ability of clarity. My hearing improved. My mind. My mind went black or white. So before I had my stroke, I was kind of in the gray, and all of a sudden I was either down or I was up. There was no middle ground. So I was either down and or I was up, and that was it. And I love the fact that I had those two extremes going. I was like I was a schizophrenic, really, and those two extremes made it easy to know what was real and what wasn't. So I wasn't. There was some tremendous benefits that accrued to me because of what the stroke had given me. It made me, I was much closer with Linda. I fell in love with Linda, and I fell in love with life, and it just there were things that I had never imagined that would accrue to me.
The feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, the feelings that he has now, he never thought he would have the depth of feeling. And, you know, one of the things, like he said, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to do his work again and be a teacher again because he'd lost, you know, he had to get back his ability to speak and comprehend. But I find when I listen to him, his work with people, his counseling with people, his helping people is better than ever. The depth of it is better than ever. So it's like he didn't lose it. That's the one thing he didn't want to lose, is his ability to help people.
Yeah.
And it's better than ever. So
it's amazing. I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but we were talking about after some of the stuff that happened with us and our family, that it took away some of the, I guess, the words. We couldn't explain things as well, but we had more depth of feeling with what we were doing. That was kind of what I heard, and what you were saying is that, yeah, that's some of the technical stuff of how to word things is a training process, but you have the depth is actually more now. Depth of feeling and the gratitude and all those feelings have become stronger, and that has allowed you to help people more than when you had basically the words, or more words in a way.
But what I wanted, I mean, I got so much respect for people who are caretakers, who are helpers. I got so much respect.
Right.
And if I have one thing to say, is don't let the negativity seduce you. Don't believe in discouragement. Never believe in discouragement. Never believe in it. You will get discouraged. You will get down. You will get anxious. You get frightened. But you don't have to believe in it. And if you don't believe it, you know, it's just you wait it out. Your resiliency or your deeper feelings, like my deeper feelings, like hope and gratitude, or resiliency, or whatever you want to call it, they will come back. They will come back. You just wait for it and they'll come back. Just don't believe in negativity. Just don't do it. Don't believe in it.
And I can understand why people who are in rehab get disheartened. I understand it. It makes sense to me that would be tough for them to be limited the way they are with a stroke. And I also can understand that the people who are helping them are affected by their feelings. they can get into discouragement too. You know, they can get dark, and a lot of them have a very low vision. The caretakers have a very low vision for themselves, and they would say that they're protecting themselves from discouragement.
Right.
That's what they would say. Now, it doesn't make sense to me, because they're actually proponents of discouragement. So I don't know I don't know why they would say that, but I respect that they really feel that their experience, and they're very, other than that, they do really well.
Like, for example, in you know, there's naysayers all around you, which you, not just naysayers in your own mind, but they're naysayers in the world, and you have to ignore them too. And I remember, you know, one of the things that, you know, George was supposed to rehab from this heart surgery, which meant he had to get up and walk right away. Well, he couldn't walk, right? So you know, like, what are we going to do to rehab you from your heart surgery? You can't walk. So I was just kind of, I was in such a feeling of hope, and I was like waiting for it. Like I was just waiting for it. And every once in a while, my mind would go to jealousy because I'd see all these heart patients walking around intensive care. And I'm like, that's supposed to be George, and it's not George. And I go, nope, don't do that. So I'm like waiting for it. And then in this moment, I'm going, you know, he's gonna walk soon. He's gonna walk. And I was saying that to the nurse, and she says, oh dear, don't get too hopeful. He's probably not gonna walk for, you know, don't get too. And I'm like, so I ignored her, and I said to her, no, he's gonna walk. In fact, he's gonna walk tomorrow. He's gonna walk all around this hospital tomorrow, I said to her. And she rolled her eyes at me, you know, and like she looked sorry for me. Like she felt sorry for me that I was so deluded. He walked all around the hospital the next day. He did. Now, I don't know how, I could have been wrong, right? But the fact that I was so, I don't know if I could. When people live in that, the feeling of possibility, which hope is the feeling of possibility, things happen. I think everybody can relate to that. When you live in the feeling of possibility, things happen. So, but the fact, what happened is that I never saw that nurse again, so I didn't get to say, I told you so.
Yeah.
I want to say, I told you so.
You would have loved that. Yeah.
You know. But you know, there were so many amazing things that happened that were so in the process of rehabbing that were so funny and so, I don't know, just so heartening.
Yeah, so endearing.
And so creative. Like, for example, I know this is a bad one, but so George, he had to rehab from both major events at the same time. And one of the things, he gets very stubborn, but I could understand because he's supposed to cough, because you accumulate all this crap in your lungs from the anesthesia, and you have to cough it out or you're going to get pneumonia. Well, he won't, because it hurts, because he's got this big incision down his chest, right? And it's all wired shut, and it hurts like hell. Anyway, and then he can't take medication because he had the stroke. Can't take pain medication because he had a stroke. And it hurts like hell, and he has to cough. And I'm like, and he's kind of borderline pneumonia. So I'm like, and I'm talking to him about, hey, you're borderline pneumonia, got a cough. And he's like, I don't want to. So Erica, our daughter, came, and she was talking to George about the fact that they'd taken their dog to the vet. And when they got home, the dog ran out of the car and took a big poop on the lawn. George starts laughing, and he just coughs up this big bunch of crap from his lungs, right? So every time I want him to cough up stuff, I tell him about the dog pooping on the lawn, and he can't help it. He laughs and coughs. So, you know, you learn all these ways of working it out that aren't like, I mean, who's going to tell somebody a story about a dog pooping on a lawn that's going to make somebody cough? But you work it out. You find ways, you know, your creative mind, right? When you don't know. Like, I didn't know how I was going to make him cough, because every time I would try to make him, he wouldn't do it. But I found a way, creative mind, from not knowing.
Well, let's see if there's any
thing people want to ask.
Yeah, if there's any.
But you said you wanted to talk about uncertainty. Is that over? Is that the past? Is that gone?
No. I think that's the past. Yeah.
Okay, you don't want to talk about that. Okay. Because
there's mostly people loving it.
Preparation, and George was preparing to talk about uncertainty, and he didn't. So there it
yeah,
went.
That's how it is.
No, it's been amazing. It's been so beautiful.
Yeah, it seems like most of the people just love it. Let's see if there's anything on. Dejan or Patrick, do you have any questions for them?
No, I'm just soaking up the knowledge, man. But wait, I did have a comment. I got a comment. what you were saying about just keep looking forward. I get like it struck to me, and it made me think about going down like a tunnel, like going down a long dark tunnel, because it's like it's scary up in a tunnel. Like, you feel me? It's real scary. It's like you got all these things probably over the wall, probably up on the top of you, probably at the bottom of you, like those are all your negative thoughts. But if you look straight, you're gonna still see the light. You feel me? So it's like with all those things going around you, if you can still find that resilience to keep looking forward and you're gonna see the light, you're gonna push yourself to keep moving forward until you get to the end of the tunnel where the light gonna be at. So that's what that was my comment.
You just summarized what I said. You're an amazing listener. You just exactly summarized, because it was like that for me. All I did is put my eyes on the light. And I would, when I would look to the side into the darkness, now sometimes I did get caught up and I got really thrown. Because like the first 6 weeks were really difficult, because it was like George was there, but not there. He was like a ghost. He was there, but not there. And that would freak me out. So I would have to just not look at it and just keep my eyes on the light. But perfect metaphor.
Thank you.
And
I
so,
just want to say thank you for the experience, and I learned a lot from you all in a short period of time. Also about thank you for all of the time that y'all have given to other people with sharing and helping. It's a bit inspiration to see people actually doing it for that long of a period of time and still having a positive effect and a positive energy about it. Congratulations, George, on all your success, and I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for the fact that you are so young and you started on this journey, and you will help so many people. So thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
no, it just struck me how, we've never talked about it this in depth, which is funny because we've spent some time together, but I hadn't heard the whole story, but it felt like you were telling our story, like verbatim. And that, and Dejan did, he just put the perfect visual metaphor to it. But it was so intriguing. Like, I felt like I had a moment, exactly like you said, Linda, where like you could have gone dark and you felt it, like, and it feels like such a pull. And you realize in that moment how close it is for anybody that you could fall into that. But yet, and that's the most important part. And that was the most beautiful part of what I heard. It's like, there's some free will there. There's some human potential that can rise up in us in that moment to go, no, nope, not going there, because that's the beginning of the end. And you can feel it. You can feel the end in it.
Well, you know what it is, Mara? It's what Dejan said. I'm going to go back to that. If you understand, it's the understanding, the questioning of, is thought real? Thought gives me an experience, but is it real? And when you question that, the reality of your experience, it protects you, because you go, wait a minute. That's the understanding. Wait a minute. Is that real? Do I have to go there? Is that real? Do I want to go down that path? No. See, that the understanding that thought that your experience isn't necessarily real and true and important, and that you have to think about it and analyze it and work it out. No, just a little bit of understanding that your experience isn't real. It's just the manifestation of your thought and consciousness. And if you understand that even a little bit, it protects you, and it activates your free will. That's what it does. That understanding activates your free will. Oh, and I did the tree thing.
You did?
I would go sit in the tree. No, I did. Before Mara even said about when I would get tired, like when I would get tired, then it was harder to negotiate the darkness of my mind.
Mm.
And when that would happen, I would go sit amongst the trees and they would heal me.
Mm.
I would feel healed. I didn't hug them, but I sat with them.
Yeah.
Honest, I did. I go sit with the trees.
I love it. It's so
So
beautiful.
I just had to say the tree things.
Yeah. No, it's all the rage
Maybe
these
we
days.
should go out and sit in the trees.
Yeah, really. That's what I was thinking. I think Michael is onto something here.
Y'all got me want to go sit next to a tree now.
Yeah.
Go sit next to a tree.
Well, I don't have anything to add. I mean, you guys
No.
said it all, and
I think that's why there's really not a lot
really
of questions.
beautiful and really raw and fresh and honest. So thank you both.
Yeah.
Oh, where's Teo?
Oh, he's
He's
jumping
bouncing
around.
in his chair. He loves his little bouncy chair. He can forget that we exist for a little while,
Yeah,
which
just
is
for a little bit.
it's good for the rest of this.
Well, Linda, what month are we in our rehab?
We're in our 11th month.
11th month.
Yeah. Or wait a minute. No, we're in the beginning of our 12th month.
All right.
Wow. I cannot believe it's been almost a year. What?
Congratulations too.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Mhm.
Nice.
Well, all I have to say is I love you all.
Yeah, I love you all too.
I really love you all.
Hey, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, really. It was really an honor to be in that company.
I love this format that you're doing. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
And
will.
I hope you do another one.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Because I think it's very nourishing to people and very hopeful.
Yeah. No, we've been absolutely loving it,
We
and
have.
people have been loving it too. So yeah.
It's been
We were like, how can it be? Last one was so good, and then we have this one like, oh, happen
I know,
again.
I was nervous to
This
do
is-
another one because the last one was so good. I
This
thought,
is really
don't
good, too.
touch it. Just leave
You
it.
want to quit while you're ahead.
Yeah. But this was just as amazing, and I feel just as grateful. And
Yeah.
so glad.
But I
we
think
did
it's
it.
a real service to people what you're doing, in this
Thank
time.
you.
And I hope I don't know how many people last time you said you had 1,000.
Well, we had 300 for the Zoom, and then we had, there's a few thousand who've seen the live stream after. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I hope you get twice that many.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hope so too.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here,
and
and
thank you to all of you all around the world.
everyone's listening, everyone's commenting.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Teo is done.
And thank you for representing the Rebels for Peace t-shirt.
You're
For
welcome.
sure, all the OGs, all the OGs, for sure, all the OGs.
You got
Look in your local
Here, with your hand.
look in your local t-shirt
That's amazing.
store for this.
All
This
right.
is an endorsement right here.
Right. We'll send you a check, George.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an
Bye-bye.
amazing Saturday. Thank you.